Part 249. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2487. When he was so frightened that he radiated the power of his brain waves to feel who these dead beings were, his expression suddenly changed drastically. The dead, without exception, were all members of the forces to which he belonged. Members of various troops, from weak logistical members at the Earth level to the strongest starry sky level experts, were blown to pieces from the inside as if there was an exploding bomb in their heads, and they were so dead that they could no longer die. He finally put his horrified gaze back on the unknown human-type strong man beneath him. This time, there was no longer any arrogance or doubt about his strength. Even his eyes, after looking at each other for a moment, screamed, and his whole body fell from the sky, crawling in front of the school, rustling, trembling, not daring to make any slights or threats. Because he knew that the humanoid existence in front of him was really not something he could deal with. After all, he would never be able to kill so many starry sky level warriors and more than 10,000 warriors in one go. What's even more exaggerated is that he also has such terrifying fine control abilities, which is totally different. It wasn't the energy of a big move that flattened the city, but the power of brainwaves, which accurately killed the soldiers in their army without harming any grass or trees in other places. This kind of ability is no longer something he can do at the level of a venerable. Got it? So he understood that he was finished, and his entire life depended on the seemingly ordinary imperial human in front of him. My lord, let me guess a second time. Please don't do anything to me yet. He looked a little ugly, but he prepared to continue with great difficulty. Because this is the game proposed by the strong man on the other side. Since he has that kind of strength, it means that he made the previous request just for fun. If he wants to kill him, he can solve it with one move. If he doesn't kill him, it means that he only needs to answer the question correctly. There will be no problem in surviving. Do you finally want to make a good guess? Just make a good guess, I'll wait. Seeing that he had finally corrected his position, Jia Yan smiled slightly and waited on the spot to see what this powerful intruder would guess and whether he could really defeat his subspace talent. Playing tricks? That's right. What's wrong with me being a strong person and just trying to fool others? What's more, if he really wants to answer, I will let him go. What? Jia Yan has reached the point where when faced with such a powerful being, he has no scruples at all and can kill or let go as he pleases. Of course, it depends on whether this guy can guess accurately. Subspace talents are rare. Unless this venerable level powerhouse connects him with Jia Yan on Earth, he may not be able to guess what his talent is. I see. Before Jia Yan could wait too long, the venerable level creature suddenly became ecstatic. Oh? What did you guess? Tell me. Jia Yan was neither sad nor happy, and stood calmly in front of the window with his hands behind his hands, looking at the venerable creature not far away from the window. Sir, the defensive energy you just used is extremely mysterious, but I guess that this defensive energy must have a certain relationship with your talent. In addition, you killed so many of our soldiers quietly before. This ability is probably also it has something to do with your talent. Although I am not talented, after thinking about it, I think that in my knowledge, there should be only one talent that can do this, and it is somewhat consistent with the lethality and defense effect you have caused. I would venture to guess whether this talent could be. What he said was clear and logical, but Jia Yan knew after only half a sentence that he was wrong. Just to defend, but still need to use talents? He killed tens of thousands of ordinary soldiers, but he was worthy of allowing his senior domain master to activate his natural abilities? Thinking too much. So Jia Yan remained unmoved and waited for the other party to say the target words he guessed. After all, even if the reasoning didn't match up, there was still a possibility that the result would be wrong. Gravity talent. That's right, sir, you should be a strong one with gravity talent. The energy of my attack just now was transferred by your defense gravity talent in an instant, so it looks like my energy is divided and I can't attack. I can't resist it enough. And to kill so many ordinary weak creatures, their organs should be exploded by gravity. This effect should overlap with the feeling of seeing it. Sir, this is my guess. Is it right or not? Gravity talent. Wow, you can really think about it. Jia Yan originally thought that he would hear some reliable guess, but he didn't expect to hear such a far-fetched guess, so he shook his head instantly. That's wrong, just do it this time and destroy half of your army on the planet. Jia Yan shook his head and raised his foot again without giving the other party any time to react. Boom. This time, I stepped lightly, but there seemed to be an extraordinary storm, impacting the hearts of countless people around me. After all, you have to kill half of the planet's enemy forces in one breath, and you can't use a large-scale attack force. You need to use countless subtle mental controls to spread the energy evenly and detonate countless enemy soldiers. This is very tiring. Human life. An ordinary half-star level may be able to use range attack power to kill half of the life on the planet, but it is absolutely impossible for them to do it. Now this kind of effect that only kills a part of the life, the two in comparison, one seems to be immortal, and the other seems to be a high-altitude god. Boom. When the prostrate venerable being felt a light tap that resounded through his heart, his whole brain buzzed, and he almost fainted. What kind of strong man is this? He didn't expect that the attack just now seemed to be beyond the limit of the humanoid strongman in front of him. Now, this attack directly made him understand what unfathomable means. He couldn't even understand the moves, and he didn't quite understand the form of energy. With such a being, why would he still guess at other people's talents? To analyze the types of talents that people may have in their moves just now? I'm just kidding you. If you're stupid, it's impossible to guess. At the same time, small explosions erupted one after another from the insignificant planet at war in the heart of the Empire. And in an instant, there was a continuous ups and downs, and it became a sound wave. Countless people could hear how there was an explosion around them, but it was not too loud. Of course, if they saw a real explosion scene, they would probably be even more shocked, because every explosion represents the death of an enemy intruder. Even if there are some enemy troops present, if they see their comrades die due to a strange explosion and want to escape, they will still die from the explosion within a few steps. This explosion caused more than 10,000 casualties in more than 10,000 soldiers around the school war zone. It doubled directly. I don't know how many times. After all, although this planet is not a strategic location, it has also endured a large number of enemy troops coming to attack. Even if it is only a third-rate troop among the third-rate troops, the number of them is still real. Half a planet, more than 1,000 starry sky level, 5 venerable level, plus about 500,000 soldiers below the starry sky level, were completely wiped out by such a blow, with all dead and injured, not even a single one was missed. None. At the same time, Jia Yan did not kill an ordinary imperial man by mistake. Such precise control is evident. Standing behind Jia Yan, the bearded man could no longer describe his feelings with shock. He felt like he had seen a real god. Previously, he was ridiculously worried that there was a powerful person at the venerable level coming to attack the planet, so he needed to be careful. He even thought that the strongest person in front of him was only at the venerable level. But now I know that I was so wrong. Of course, this also made him more convinced that the existence in front of him should not be from Earth. How could there be such a strong person among Earth people? Even Jia Yan back then, huh? He suddenly thought of Jia Yan, and then his expression was startled. Looking back, he looked at the back of the man in front of him, and suddenly he was a little messy and not so calm. Because when he thought of Jia Yan, he instantly combined the figure of the man in front of him with Jia Yan. Even though his appearance was different, even though his strength seemed to be far beyond what he knew about Jia Yan. Thinking about the various speculations about the relationship between this man and the giant mosquito, he quickly thought of this man in his heart. The man and Jia Yan came together, and inexplicably, he agreed with the guess that he was Jia Yan. However, Beard wouldn't say that. He just tried his best to spread out his brainwave power and use the energy at the peak of the sky to sense the outside world to see if there were really that many dead and injured enemy troops outside. It's a pity that with his heaven-level strength, he can only sense places not far away. At least within the range of his perception, the enemy troops are really dead and wounded, and no one is alive. At the same time, there are no innocent victims among the ordinary people on this planet. If this situation extends to half the planet as the predecessor said, how powerful this must be. Okay, I have fulfilled my promise and killed half of your army on the planet. Now I will make one last guess. If you guess it right, I will let you go, and your army on the other half of the planet will also be let go. But if you didn't guess correctly, I'm sorry, you understand what I mean. Ming, I understand, sir, let me think about it again. The venerable level creature is different from the bearded one. Although his brainwave power cannot cover half of the planet, it is still possible for thousands of kilometers. Therefore, as soon as he detects the power that covers it, he knows that people of his own side are dead everywhere. He even saw the venerable corpses of his colleagues. With just a few glances, he knew very well that the other party really had this ability. The foot that Jia Yan stepped on just now made him extremely frightened. He was afraid that if the seemingly ordinary and small foot fell again, he would die if he did it again. What else could he say? You can only accept the conditions proposed by the other party, otherwise the result cannot be changed. Think about it quickly, I'll give you 3 minutes. Jia Yan shook his head indifferently, then turned around and looked at the bearded man who had been standing behind him for a while. The bearded man was already quite excited, and the look on his face seemed to indicate something. Senior, is that you? The bearded man hesitated and asked such a question. Jia Yan didn't answer him, just responded with a smile, as if he had acquiesced to something, but also seemed not to agree with anything. But the beard was already grinning, because this smile had already confirmed his suspicion. But he didn't expect that his guess, and a few words that were so vague, would let the venerable level creature who had been thinking hard know something. After all, as a venerable level creature, he could hear the nearby sounds clearly. Not only did he hear the sound of the beard, but he could also hear the noise of the students and parents in the school. Senior? Is it you? He was startled for a moment, and then he was ecstatic. This should be the clue he wanted. What is the identity of this imperial man? Come on, think about it for me. The brain of the venerable level biological monster started to work rapidly, preparing to break through as a bearded person. Suddenly, he thought of the investigation results he had obtained just before arriving that a battle broke out in this area. The reason is that their own troops wanted to set a bait to deal with an international college. The purpose was to cause the teachers in the international school to take action first, and then they would use the other party to say that the other party had broken the rules and combine the school, including the international facilities of all subsequent battles, with organization, included in the attack scope. This was their conspiracy, but inexplicably, after inducing a teacher from an international school to take action, they unexpectedly brought out such a great figure. No. A teacher from an international school. Suddenly, the mission information flashed through his mind, which matched the identity of the human with the white beard. This human man is not from the Empire at all. He is an international teacher, and there are many creatures similar to those from the Empire, in Orion's arms, but judging from the energy he exposed, it is the so-called yin-yang Dao, that is to say, he is probably an earthling from the earth. Whoever said that a strong creature's brain doesn't work well is because his own brain is burned out. There is no brain among the strong people walking in space that is not easy to use. The fact that this venerable person can serve as a high-level official in the army shows that he must have a good mind, and his analytical ability is even better. He suddenly analyzed the identity of Beard from various intelligence and clues. It's not precise enough, but it's enough. Knowing that he is from Earth, and then thinking about what he just asked, the mysterious and powerful man who killed and injured half of the friendly forces on the entire planet with one foot. Him. He actually is the legendary Jia Yan. A moment later, this venerable level creature felt that his breathing had become heavier. Just because he guessed the identity of the human creature in front of him, even though his appearance did not look like the Jia Yan in the image data, but as an alien junior high-level executive, he also knew that this Jia Yan most likely the appearance is ever-changing. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2488. Don't be nervous. Even if he is Jia Yan, he is not impossible to deal with. Moreover, he asked me to play this little game of guessing talent, and he obviously didn't take me seriously. So I don't have to worry, don't show it, I recognize him. The talent, Jia Yan's talent is. His breathing became more rapid, thinking of Jia Yan's talent. As for Jia Yan's talent, everyone knows it for the forces in the surrounding star fields, especially any soldier and strong person who comes to attack the Orion armed forces. Subspace talent. And it's not an ordinary subspace talent, it's an extremely powerful subspace talent. Moreover, Jia Yan also mastered the so-called yin and yang dao that he created. In the last war, all members of the Orion arm learned yin and yang dao and used the joint tactics of yin and yang dao, which resulted in huge casualties from the outside world. Even today, there seems to be a large number of the civilization is preparing to restart the Onmyo tactics, causing losses to the invaders like them. However, yin-yang dao is not a talent. Jia Yan's exact talent should be a subspace talent. Sir, I think your talent should be the talent of subspace, right? Finally, after analyzing it for a long time, the venerable level expert decided to take a gamble. Even if he was wrong, he would have no regrets because there was no more reliable guess than this. Oh! What he received was the surprised look of the standing man. At this moment, he felt that he was alive. Really alive. This venerable level creature felt that he had stepped halfway on the ghost monster's foot and took it back. Even though the strong man in front of him was still powerful, looking at his expression, he was definitely guessing. Then, if the guess is correct, his identity will be revealed without a doubt, Jia Yan. Earth Jia Yan. This is a legend, even if it is placed in the surrounding star field, it is still a legend. Not to mention his strength, just say that the Orion arm, which was so rubbish at the beginning, was saved from a hopeless situation surrounded by enemies because of such an existence. That is something that ordinary venerables cannot do. What's more, Jia Yan's strength, coupled with his unique and powerful subspace talent, is unique among the venerable level and is so strong that it defies the heavens. If we add a lot of rumors that Jia Yan is inextricably connected with the giant Mosquito clan, and may even be the clone of a certain giant mosquito, it will become even more mysterious. Yes, you guessed it right. As you wish, you can leave, and take everyone in your army on this planet with you, and when you go back, tell your people not to come to this planet for the next period of time. Of course, those who think they are stronger than me are welcome to come, I am here to welcome you. Jia Yan chuckled and let the venerable man leave. I had never had any dealings with this venerable man, and I didn't know how bad he was. I had never been insulted by his words, so it didn't matter if I spared him. This is a super strong person. When faced with such a being, it is all about letting go or not, because to Jia Yan, there is no difference between the venerable level and the flowers and plants on the roadside. To put it in the most unpleasant words, if he is here in his true form and does not make any resistance, this venerable level being will attack with all his strength, and even until death, he will not be able to break through his giant mosquito body. Who? After hearing Jia Yan's voice, the venerable level man flew up in an instant and shouted, "Thank you, sir. I'm leaving. I will take your words back, thank you, sir." While saying extremely cowardly words, he flew towards the sky, wishing that his parents would give him an extra pair of wings. But what excites him is that after he flew into space, he didn't notice any intention to attack behind him, so he relaxed a little. This is Jia Yan. This is definitely Jia Yan. I want to inform the higher UPS, exactly how I will inform you, and I will not hide it. I will reply exactly as he told me. This venerable man was in space, a full 50,000 kilometers away from the planet below. He took out a long-range communicator and relayed the information about his encounter today and Jia Yan's presence here to the upper level. He believed that in a place like this, it would be impossible for the planet to know what he said. But he never expected that the powerful people on the planet were far beyond his imagination. The clone of Jia Yan, who was chatting with the bearded man in the school and handling some affairs, moved his ears lightly and showed a smile. Has his true identity been revealed? Even a venerable level existence has a very good mind, but because of Beard's words, the identity of his avatar was exposed, which was a bit boring. But it doesn't matter if they are exposed. The forces on the other side know that it is them. It depends on how they judge whether to attack or to let themselves go. Through their reactions, you can also know how confident these forces in the outer star field are. Jia Yan's famous name has been rumored for a long time, and things have changed. Decades have passed, and Jia Yan, who had only practiced for a few decades, has that kind of strength. Now the other party should be able to judge Jia Yan from the arrogance of Jia Yan's words. Yan is strong enough. If they dare to come like this, it means they definitely have a trump card or some unique plan. No matter what it is, Jia Yan will not deliberately prepare or prevent it. Because he is too confident in his own strength and ability to deal with crises. When it reaches the Domain Lord level, only those with power above the Domain Lord level can suppress and kill it. And a senior subspace talented Domain Lord like Jia Yan is even difficult to kill several of the same level. At least a mid-level Domain Master is required, and even a mid-level Domain Master may not be able to kill Jia Yan, but a high-level Domain Master? Just kidding, there are not necessarily a few high-level Domain Lords in the entire galaxy, and each of them is like the Supreme Lord in the black hole area, who is like a god. He wants to kill Jia Yan and have food and drink. Water is as simple as water. If he really wants to take action, Jia Yan can't avoid it even if he doesn't show off. Moreover, high-level Domain Lords will only appear near the central star field of the Milky Way. As for the area around the Orion Arm, Jia Yan doubted whether a high-level Domain Lord had passed by this area from ancient times to the present, let alone whether a high-level Domain Lord would be here to deal with such a senior Domain Lord like himself. So what is he afraid of? Even if there is an ordinary territory lord here, or even a senior territory lord with weaknesses here, he is not afraid at all. Senior, everyone around here is generally fine. The enemies seem to have begun to leave the planet in large numbers. On behalf of the 2 billion humans on this imperial planet, I would like to thank you for your intervention. The bearded man was respectful to Jia Yan. Even if he guessed Jia Yan's identity, he didn't feel he was qualified to talk directly with such a legendary being, but kept himself very low. The closer he got to the universe and the more he understood, the more he knew how much Jia Yan and the giant mosquito behind Jia Yan had done to help the Orion Arm, or should I say help the Earth. It is precisely because of this great feeling that a temperamental person like Beard is most grateful. I am willing to call you Master Jia Yan, and I will not feel uncomfortable at all. That's good. I will be sitting here for a while recently, so you don't have to be too cautious to approach me, let alone tell others about me. Just let me take a good stroll. Jia Yan shook his head and told Beard that he would stay on this planet for a long time. Anyway, nothing happens, so it's good to take a stroll here and see what this empire feels like, just like the people on Earth. Of course, he is also practicing what he said, to protect this planet for a period of time. After all, it's just a clone. Even if Jia Yan has to sink the clone into the ground and keep it here forever, there won't be much loss. It's just that I don't have to or want to. It didn't take long for Jia Yan and Bearded Beard to make some explanations, then stood up and took a step out, disappearing without a trace. He was left with a white beard and stood there dumbfounded. After a long time, he sighed helplessly. For an ordinary earthling like him, Jia Yan's name is like a brand that is almost like a god. Even though the bearded man has many contacts with Jia Yan and Giant Mosquito, he is because of these. Through experience, I have a more direct perception of the two, and I admire them more. Even though he has been in the universe for so many years, he often hears aliens slandering Jia Yan on Earth, saying that his strength is actually average, at best only at the venerable level, and that he is nothing in the outer star field, but this cannot annihilate him. Worship and admiration for Jia Yan and the giant mosquito. And it is precisely because of this kind of worship that he has a feeling of seeing yin and yang dao, as if he is seeing the avenue of the universe. It is also because of this kind of worship and admiration that he has been on yin and yang dao and systematizing yin and yang dao, and is in line with ancient China. He has made considerable contributions to the integration of martial arts. It is a pity that his talent is not good. He has reached the age of 100, but he is only at the peak of the heaven level. This is the result of the Earth Alliance spending a lot of resources. So he ran away, taught yin and yang tao, and at the same time looked at the universe, and by the way promoted Jia Yan, the founder of the world. But after assuming the identity of an ordinary person, he became an ordinary Earth teacher and a teacher who preached to the outside world. He became more aware of the warmth of the outside world. There were more people who didn't believe in Jia Yan's strength. More often than not, he would not dare to introduce the greatness of Jia Yan under certain circumstances. Countless things have finally been verified at this moment today. Senior Jia Yan. Looking in the direction of the figure who disappeared in an instant, the bearded man also grinned. His smile was very silly, and he had the feeling of the murderous bearded man in the past. You are indeed an extraordinary person. Times have changed, and the venerable Jia Yan who was criticized by others decades ago is no longer the same Jia Yan before his eyes today. Rather, it is an unfathomable existence that can be disposed of by a venerable person and kill half of the enemy forces on the planet with just one move. The beard is like the Tao that I have been pursuing for so many years, which has been confirmed, and my soul is more perfect. Haha, it doesn't matter. I am in a good mood, and I have a treasured sword. I am proud of my life. After finishing this job, I feel that I should return to the earth and see my family. Haha, maybe some old girl will like me? The bearded man seemed to have achieved enlightenment. No one knew what he had thought, and no one knew whether he had any philosophy of life. Vicissitudes of life. In the distance, a man walking among the crowd smiled and shook his head. Jia Yan didn't know what this bearded man had gone through over the years, but it seemed that he was the one with the most profound insights into life among his many old friends. Who would have imagined that dozens or hundreds of years ago? Will the silly killer look like today? It's interesting. If you live a long time, you can live a long life. Jia Yanting likes to see the changes in life. Whether it is good changes or bad changes, it seems that he can understand the meaning of life from anyone. Of course, I have seen a lot, but I don't seem to understand anything. If there is someone who can understand all the philosophies of life, it is probably not a human but a god. It's a pity that Jia Yan has never seen a god, at least so far, and there is no trace of the so-called God. There are many strong men in the race who claim to be godlike, but at most they are relatively powerful creatures. That's all, it's far from omniscient and omnipotent. Live and learn. It's only been 100 years, and I've seen a lot of things. But I can still live for thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years. I don't know if such a long time is a good thing or a bad thing. Jia Yan was thinking about it and walking on the streets, watching the imperial people coming and going on this devastated planet, and watching the people who fell into despair, misery, or madness because of the war, even turned into mental disorder, and even carried out. There were all kinds of people committing crimes, but he seemed to be aloof from them. Many people would not pay attention to an ordinary person like him walking on the road, but some people thought that he seemed to be distracted and had no luggage with him, so they would bring water and food, and Jia Yan did not refuse and accept it with a smile. Of course, you will give small rewards afterwards, such as making the viruses in his body disappear and hidden diseases removed. No matter how much benefit you give Jia Yan, he will double or even several times return the favor. If we talk about gods, maybe in the eyes of these ordinary people in the empire, I am a god walking in the world. Jia Yan was gone for about 2 days before he realized this. Are you a god in the game world? He looks a lot like me. Of course Jia Yan understands that he is not a god, he is just a strong man. People who claim to be gods are either arrogant or a person with distorted self-perception. He is not to that level, so he will not this twisted illusion. It's just that what he is doing now is somewhat similar to the so-called gods, so he has a deeper understanding. Gods and mortals may sometimes be on the same page. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2489. Perhaps if you become stronger, you will worship and hallucinate your own abilities, and then make yourself a so-called god. In a certain mountain forest, Jia Yan was sitting on the edge of the woods, eating the rations given to him by an unknown kind person on the roadside, feeling a little dazed. What he didn't know was that when his 2 clones were idle, powerful men were discussing matters regarding his clone in the distant space. And these strong men are not ordinary strong men at all. Even if Jia Yan himself sees them, they are not too weak. They are galaxy-level existences. Oh! The so-called Jia Yan actually appeared in the Orion Arm Empire. Civilians and people in other star fields may not know these inside stories, but we all know that this so-called Jia Yan should be the clone of the giant mosquito. So his appearance means that the giant mosquito is back too. If he comes back, we will be in trouble. I am not belittling myself, but looking at the growth of the giant mosquito, its current strength should not be underestimated. Don't worry, don't we have someone to help us this time? That's right. As long as that noble man is here, with his arrogant combat power several times that of the same level, I'm afraid he can easily get rid of the giant mosquito. Then there's no need to think about it anymore. Since Jia Yan doesn't want to reveal his true identity, he must be ready to see the situation. Let's not attack the planet where his clone is located for the time being, and don't go to the Earth Alliance to fight and destroy other areas of the Orion Arm. Let's get confused. This group of galaxy-level powerhouses obviously did not receive the information. The giant mosquito supreme has appeared on the other side of the Earth. If they received that information, they might become more aware of the complexity of the situation in the Orion Arm. The height of fear. Unfortunately, probably because they did not pay attention to the intelligence collection work of the Orion Arm, this group of powerful people lag behind in the intelligence from the Earth for many days, and these many days of lag are the most fatal. After the exchange, the galaxy-level beings gathered together raised their heads and looked into the depths of the starry sky. There is a huge interstellar object similar to a black hole, quietly hovering in space. Dad, where are we going to play today? Haha, I heard that the fish in the Mississippi River are big and easy to catch. Can Daddy take you and Mom to the Mississippi River for a fishing picnic today? Raise your hand if you want to go. A man who looked to be in his 30s raised his hands high in the house. Chiao Chiao goes. Chiao Chiao goes too. Immediately there was a little girl of 4 or 5 years old jumping up and down, raising her hands vigorously, her face full of liveliness and excitement. Look at you father and daughter, you've been playing crazy these days. Beside you, the woman who was so beautiful that she didn't look like an ordinary human being shook her head helplessly and glared at the man. Haha, honey, you are becoming more and more like an earth woman. Don't be upset. After playing for 2 more days, I will teach Chiao how to practice. She has a very high level of understanding and her potential will surpass Zirong's. The man comforted the beautiful woman and then packed his luggage. The little girl was running around happily from beginning to end. Although she said bad things about the father and daughter, after looking at the happy scene of the father and daughter, the peerless beauty secretly smiled a little on her touching facial features. My daughter, who originally tended to have a personality that gradually became closer to his own, came out of her fear of strangers and cold mentality within a few days of being taken care of by her father, and became quite lively and active. Now she looks like a normal child. That's right, this family of 3 is Jiayan, his wife Satsuma-gon, and his daughter Jia who was born normally to Satsuma-gon. I don't know if Jiayan really fell in love with his daughter, or if his emotional intelligence for so many years has been devoted to dealing with children. In short, he seems to have a very happy relationship with his daughter. He is fighting fiercely outside to improve his strength without knowing anything about his family. What is it like to be with a child? A centenarian man, and a little girl who is being taken care of by a cold-tempered mother, and a little girl with autism. When the two come together, they meet happily and become one old and one young. They are living treasures, catching fish and chasing bears together every day, so unhappy. In these days, in addition to focusing on other avatars, Jiayan also spends most of his time traveling with the girl and his wife, which makes him happy both physically and mentally. All the mental fatigue accumulated over the past few decades has disappeared. A lot has been eliminated. And because of his active talk and care, his daughter has transformed from the psychological state of being led astray by her mother into a normal child. This is also something that Jiayan is quite proud of. On this day, they went to the deepest part of the Mississippi River in another hemisphere, and they went fishing in a riverside area that was vigorously protected by the Earth government and sparsely populated, almost like a primeval forest. As for safety issues, with an unrivaled strong man like Jiayan here, is it possible for the mother and daughter to get hurt? And even if Jiayan is not present, Satsuma is already one of the few semi-stellar experts on the entire Earth. Will she be weak? Just kidding. You must know that the original Satsuma-chan was the most perfect product in the biochemical empire. If you only think that she is the kind of vase that only hugs your husband's thigh, you would be completely wrong. Of course, she may have reached the end of reaching the semi-star level in this life. Unless Jiayan finds a better way to break through the upper limit of her talent, she may not even be able to pass the initial stage of the semi-star level. But even if he can't get over it, for Orion Arm, he is already a master among masters. At night, the Mississippi River was blowing with a whistling wind. On the roadless riverside, a RV appeared out of thin air with its lights on. Is the child asleep? Sleep. Jiayan sat on the edge of the river, letting the river wind blow his clothes, looking at the pristine river landscape that was still not too dark under the stars. Satsuma walked to Jiayan's side, and then sat down too, his shoulder naturally leaning on Jiayan's shoulder. How is Xiaorong doing lately? Are you still unwilling to go out with us to play? Jia Yan asked again. Satsuma shook his head. The recent trend of attacks from foreign forces has been too fierce. He went to deal with affairs and said he wouldn't come, so he couldn't spare any time. This boy, even if nothing happens, he won't come here, right? Humph, he didn't even inform my wife to meet my father-in-law. It seems that he really didn't seize the opportunity to give him a good beating when he was a child. Jia Yan muttered something seemingly out of breath, which made Satsuma Kong purse his lips and smile. In Orion's arms, and in the impression of everyone in the Earth Alliance, a man who was aloof and like a god was like a big boy around him and his daughter. He spoke nonsense and Satsuma-chan found that she had fallen in love with him again recently. Got this man. Not because of his strength, but because of his fun and humor. Of course, the more important point is that he is so family-oriented. Recently, I haven't even gone to practice, and have been staying with the Satsumakan mother and daughter. You must know that Satsuma-kan has seen the former Jia Yan with his own eyes. His obsession with cultivation seems to be crazy to Satsuma-kan. But today, this cultivator is actually willing to give birth to him for himself and himself. My daughter has become a good family man. Although she also understands that all this may be temporary, it is enough. This is a being so great that she may not even imagine that she can leave a strong mark in his almost infinite life. It is really there is no need to ask for anything extravagantly. Husband. Suddenly, Satsuma screamed in a gibbering voice. Wife, what's wrong? Jia Yan looked at his wife beside him, who looked more and more like a woman from Earth. Will you take care of the Orion arm this time? I don't care about others, but I don't want to see the Earth and my hometown biochemical empire being harmed. Although the biochemical empire was once your enemy, that, after all, it is me my hometown, I don't want to. Before Satsuma could finish her words, a finger was placed on her delicate mouth. You don't need to say anything, I understand. Jia Yan smiled and blocked her lips, then lowered his head and kissed his beautiful wife on her forehead. Jia Yan was sighing. Why did I not understand so much about my past life? I didn't even want to pursue the feeling of a real wife. I even rejected such a good wife and chased after her. Looking back, I was really stupid. In fact, he feels very sorry for his wife, Satsuma Kono. Because she told Jia Yan the day before yesterday that she was born as a result of the research of the biochemical empire. Her genes are perfect and her cultivation speed is extremely fast. But the only problem is that there is no real perfection in the world. Because of genetic problems, her lifespan is like brilliant fireworks. Other semi-star powerhouses may live for 1,000 years, or even longer. But she can't. Her lifespan is probably only more than 200 years old at most. In other words, she is already over 100 years old this year, and she may not even be able to match the longevity of Jia Yan's parents. Satsuma is attached to Jia Yan, and Jia Yan is willing to leave her footsteps. It is precisely because they are both afraid that the next time Jia Yan leaves for a while, he may return to the earth, and the two will be separated forever, and their husband will be lost. Wife never sees her husband again. What's even more frightening is that Jia Yan's lifespan, even if he is just an ordinary domain lord, is calculated in 10,000 years. What's more, his cultivation will not stop. The stronger he is, the longer his lifespan will be. In the vast future of his life, he thinks I should never fall in love with any woman again, that would be so lonely. Wow! Wow! The rushing Mississippi River was sparkling. Jia Yan stood up from his sitting position and looked at the big river, flowing to the invisible end. Although once his brainwave power was released, he could easily see from one end to the other, not to mention the Mississippi River, but all the oceans on the earth. He did not do this, and even restricted himself from doing so. I will take action, but not now. Don't worry. Whether it is the Earth Alliance or your hometown, I will not let outsiders get involved in the slightest. This is my bottom line. Now I have not taken action. On the one hand, I want to see Orion. How far can Orion arm be able to achieve today? On the other hand, I want to investigate clearly why the visitors from the outside this time gave them the confidence to dare to come to me, Orion arm, to fight again. Don't worry, no matter what I can solve any problem. You just need to go sightseeing with me. Okay, I believe in my husband. After receiving Jia Yan's reply, Satsuma smiled softly. Inside the RV, a little head stuck out of the window. Seeing the couple hugging each other again, she covered her eyes, sat back under the window, and let out a cute giggle. But far away in the outer space of the universe, not far away from the Earth, deep in the seemingly empty subspace, there are huge palaces that are unimaginable. Several days have passed since this palace appeared, but there is still a lot of enthusiasm on the Earth. Even the topic that everyone talks about every day is the topic of this palace and the giant Mosquito Supreme. After all, there were as many as thousands of people who came at that time. There are more than 10,000 people, and even a large number of people have been cured of stubborn physical diseases after returning. Countless people have broken through the levels that restricted themselves at that time, and everyone seems to have received a stronger increase in talent. All of these have allowed the 10,000-kilometer large palace to gain unbelievable attention, whether it is people who have benefited from accepting the invitation, people who are upset that they did not accept the invitation, or those who are envious and hateful. Even if there are all kinds of remarks, they are inseparable from the words giant mosquito and palace. But deep in the palace where everyone was paying attention, something surprising was happening at this moment. The huge mosquito that had reached 50 kilometers away was crawling in the center of the palace, but it moved its body from time to time, and even smiled. Wow, the master is stupid. The small light and shadow mosquitoes were flying up and down, looking a little frightened. Find the bookstore. What is love? The master who has always been so calm is actually acting so rude. Adisha, why are you so noisy? The giant mosquito quickly stopped moving and looked at the small light and shadow mosquito with some annoyance. Master, I think you don't even practice cultivation anymore. You worry about your clone every day to see if you are sick. This is not like you. I'm not sick at all. It's just that I have to operate 3 clones recently, and my energy is a little weak. Besides, didn't I say it? I recently broke through to become a senior domain master. It will take quite a while to adapt, and the effect of training is not great. Liar. Master lied, Aditya shouted loudly. Master, you have operated hundreds of clones to fight without any problem. Don't try to lie to me. You just have a bad mind. No wonder people on Earth say that gentleness and fragrance are the best. Afraid of people, the master must have been corrupted by gentleness. I want to contact Leda, I want Leda to blow up the Earth. You little straight man is smart. Jia Yanfu's eyes widened. He felt that such a young man looked really stupid. Stop. Adisha, so you are still a smart brain. I am really fine. If you keep doing this, I will shut down your host. Don't worry, it's just for a while. We will be busy in the next few days. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2490. Jia Yan was really afraid that Edisha would contact Leda in a daze. You must know that Leda was in the territory of the powerful former Zerg Queen in the distance, distributing condolences and other things to them, and maybe there would be more. There were some disputes and fights, etc. If Edissa contacted him because of her family matters, she might have to disrupt Leda's important affairs. Okay, let's go get busy. Editha wants to get busy. Little Light and Shadow Mosquito is probably not only worried about Jia Yan's problem, but also that it itself has become ill. After all, following Jia Yan's real body in the depths of subspace, Jia Yan can see the pictures of each clone, but it can only wait. It doesn't matter if it doesn't get a better host. Now it has changed from a shotgun to a cannon. The processing speed is so fast, but it is on standby every day, and the power is so low that it feels like it is shut down, so it starts acting like a monster, trying to get the host to run. Of course, it was only a few days, and Edisha was still free. It was not that she had done nothing during these days. Instead, she had become an internet celebrity in the Earth Alliance, hacking into the Earth Alliance's extremely crude buildings more than once or twice. The intelligent brain program did some small damage and made the Earth Alliance aware of many major loopholes, which can be regarded as doing some good things. But the worst thing is that it transformed into hundreds of millions of accounts, communicated with many men and women on the Earth's network, and deceived many innocent men and women into being fascinated. In the end, it ended everything with a smiley face, without causing much impact. Can be said to be dumbfounding. You little rascal, I have all the complaints from the Earth Alliance coming to me. One day, Jia Yan's clone was sued by a high-ranking official in a polite way. His real body reluctantly warned Edisha, which made the situation much better. During these days, in addition to letting his avatar spend his honeymoon with his newly married wife, Jia Yan also observed the changes in the Earth over the years. Even though the attitude of Earth seemed to be the same after his return, there was no big change. In fact, Earth had not been idle during the time that Jia Yan left. It not only consolidated its financial dominance in the entire Orion arm, but also completely it is possible to promote the path of cultivation. Whether it is a kindergarten or a university, a person will be exposed to yin and yang dao from birth. Even if the talent of yin and yang dao is not good, there may be other cultivation paths to choose from. It can be said that you can't miss it. Anyone with talent. Yes, after so many years, yin yang dao has become not the only choice. More people can choose other paths after it is clear that their yin yang dao talents are not enough. Generally speaking, the Earth has become gentler in terms of cultivation. There are many, and more choices mean that there is a greater possibility of geniuses emerging. From Jia Yan's point of view, the Earth is still far from the level of true civilization, and scientific and technological civilization is not very developed, but at least they are working hard. A civilization with a population of more than 10 billion wants to it is impossible to make rapid progress in one breath. It has only been a few decades since the last time the Earth was in crisis. For civilization, such a short period of time is like a passing cloud. If you want to become fat in one bite, the only result will be to die, not to actually eat it. Fat man. Even for some obvious wrong paths, many high-level leaders of the Earth civilization have seen it from the development laws of external civilizations, but they still can only hit them head-on, and then change the direction after hitting their heads and bleeding. There are also some problems that Jia Yan has seen about external civilizations and told the Earth Alliance, but looking at the Earth Alliance today, he still can't get rid of those problems. Because just knowing is of no use, just like every human being knows not to run a red light, but there are still countless people running a red light. People who run a red light will not stop until the day they deeply understand the truth of not running a red light. Just telling them not to run through a red light won't do anything. Jia Yan was quite anxious at first, and he still hated the fact that iron cannot become steel. But after having an in-depth chat with several senior executives of the Earth Alliance, he was able to understand and suddenly understood that running a civilization could avoid certain problems by not just telling them. If we learn from the experience of others and know that certain things cannot be done, we can truly avoid the situation from happening, then there will not be so many civilizations in the entire galaxy that have been repeating the same sufferings that other civilizations have suffered. Many things, if you have experienced it yourself, it will not exist in the genes of civilization, and you cannot truly avoid those problems. So after Jia Yan was silent, as if he understood why, he stopped pointing fingers and watched quietly. Then he was pleasantly surprised to find that the Earth civilization did not directly hit those general errors, but deliberately contacted them. Once they knew the errors, they would immediately bypass them, or start to completely solve the problems from the root. This is the real way to solve the problem. Sure enough, there are specialties in surgery, so there is no point in being impatient, because others are the professionals. They just don't know where problems may arise. Tell others what you have seen. If we encounter them in the future development of the Earth, they will always find ways to avoid them. They did a great job. It turns out that I just thought I could lead the Earth. In fact, I just saw more things than others. On this day, a RV that seemed to be a flying car, but actually had no flying power at all, flew over a big city on the Earth. The man above looked at the bustling scenery below and saw that everything was in order, and then he sighed. Honey, the Earth is still very immature. From my point of view, without your guidance, the Earth Alliance will probably not be able to achieve even half of its current level. The beautiful woman also walked to the window of the RV carrying a plate full of fruits. A white and tender little hand stretched out, quietly grabbed a piece of fruit, and then took it back. The little girl's big eyes seemed to have done something proud, and she opened her little mouth and ate it with relish. Little did she know that with her parents' ability, they would not notice her little actions and just not say anything. Jia Yan turned around and reached out to pick up the fruit. After taking a bite, he smiled and nodded, "That's right. With someone like you from a higher level of civilization speaking for me, I must have done nothing wrong before." Dad is right, Chiao Chiao knows. Chiao Makiao blinked her big eyes and nodded vigorously. There were still traces of the fruit she had just greedily eaten on her mouth. Chiao Chiao didn't eat it secretly. After she finished speaking, she didn't have 300 taels of silver to defend herself. Little fool Jia Yan smiled and touched the little guy's head, then picked her up. Chiao have you memorized the oral sentence that Dad told you before? Well, Chiao has memorized it. Let's recite it to Daddy. When Xiao Chiao heard that Jia Yan was going to test herself, she immediately puffed up her little chest and felt proud. She opened her mouth and recited the knowledge that Jia Yan had only taught once yesterday. This is the basis of cultivation that Jia Yan has compiled that is only suitable for his daughter. Jia Yan was extremely satisfied after hearing how she recited it. It's good that her genes are different from those of Earthlings. She has an excellent memory. I taught her yesterday but she didn't listen carefully. Today she can still write it down word for word. Not to mention cultivation talent, Jia Yan discovered that her daughter's talent may not be worse than her brother's, maybe even better. Of course, what the future will bring depends on the specific performance. It may be infinitely stronger than her brother's, but it may also be weaker than her brother's. In the end, he only cultivated into a starry sky level powerhouse. Things like talent have always been very mysterious. Saying that a strong person has good talent does not mean that he is destined to be a strong person in the future, because there are too many uncertain factors during the development of living things, and even if nothing happens, but it is not impossible for the strong man to be stuck at a certain level for the rest of his life. But at least from the beginning, someone like Jia Yan recognized him as having good talent, which shows that Xiao Qiao's starting point is indeed high. More importantly, when she was only 4 or 5 years old, she received personal enlightenment and guidance from Jia Yan. This was much better than her brother Jia Rong, and it was probably the decisive difference. Qiao is so amazing, he memorized everything. Yeah. Qiao is amazing. My daughter is already very lively. No matter from every angle, she looks like an ordinary girl on Earth. Of course, except for the fact that the genius is a bit too much. His daughter has memorized the oral exercises, and the next step is to teach her how to practice, but Jia Yan is not in a hurry. Although he has not taught Qiao how to practice these days, he has been using his own avatar to transfer energy, subtly affecting her. Senses. Naturally, the clone does not need to practice, but Jia Yan has been doing this for two purposes. One is to deliberately create an atmosphere of practice in the air all the time, so that his daughter can gradually realize the artistic conception of practice. The other purpose is to give the higher power he has absorbed to his wife for her cultivation. Now that he has identified his wife, he doesn't want her to die at the age of more than 200 years. This is too short for Jia Yan's life that may last for 10,000 years, or even 100,000 years or even longer. The so-called life partner, then you need to be together for a longer time to be considered a life partner. So he is using the energy of the clone to correct Satsuma's cultivation from the source. Although it is impossible to affect the genetic level, it can make her better cleansed as much as possible, making it easier for Jia Yan to go to the central star field of the Milky Way in the future. Finally, there's more time to find cures for your wife's problems. Good. After getting married, the two parties are officially family members and Jia Yan's soulmate. Even if he takes risks from now on, he will not be as lonely as before. Instead, he will always remember that he has a wife. He has a wife. A people. Maybe when he sees something beautiful in the future, his first thought is not whether it is useful for cultivation, but whether it can be given to his wife as a gift. That night, there was no engine sound at all, and there was no shaking in the RV. It flew in mid-air, and quietly let the family inside fall asleep. It's just that this clone has fallen asleep, while the Earthling clone on the other side has just started to get busy. The Earthling clones here are naturally the clones left on the Empire's small planet. This clone's mission on this planet is actually just for fun, and he doesn't even want to show his face. But since he has accomplished the task of saving the entire planet, it is impossible for him not to be noticed. My lord, these are gifts from the director of our Chamber of Commerce to you. He knows that you may not like them too much, but these are just a few thoughts. I have to resign. Jia Yan, who was walking alone on the street, was once again stopped by someone who walked out for no apparent reason. He then gave him a basket of things and turned away. Again? I remember that I didn't let too many people see my appearance at that time. How come so many people know me all of a sudden? Jia Yan was helpless. He just wanted to be a free man, but the local forces on this planet did not let him go. Of course, these guys are not fools. A being who can casually kill half of the enemy forces on the planet with one strike is already a terrifying and powerful person that the local forces on this planet cannot imagine. Not only do they not have any evil intentions, as for his thoughts, he even wished that Jia Yan could be worshipped as a god. It's just that they want Jia Yan to be a god, and Jia Yan won't agree. Fruit. It seems to be a high-grade fruit. It seems that they even knew that I ate fruits given by passers-by along the way. Jia Yan shook his head and didn't throw the fruit away. Instead, he stuffed it into his mouth and ate it casually. It tastes really good. Alas, it's a pity that it's too far away. Otherwise, if you bring these fruits back to Earth and give them to someone to taste, the little guy will definitely jump with joy. The fruit must be delicious, so even this clone is very satisfied. Just eating the fruit sent by these forces is not a problem. Jia Yan is a little tired of it. Besides, walking around under the secret observation of many people, the feeling of traveling is much lighter. Is not fun. When Jia Yan felt bored, he simply licked the fruit and flashed into the subspace. Disappeared. Ah, is this sir really the legendary one? Subspace talent. It's too scary. Is such a character really the existence of our Orion arm? It's no different from a god. Don't say so much. Our empire won't deal with the Earth Alliance. If you praise him too much, you might be investigated. Oh, okay, I won't say it anymore, but if our empire wants to be an enemy of such an existence, it would be too stupid. I don't know if he is stupid or not, but I do know that this big shot should be chatting with some high-level officials on our planet. Jia Yan's behavior was indeed guessed by a few people who were observing secretly. When he cloned himself into the subspace, not even 2 seconds had passed. On the top floor of a building on the other side, in an extremely luxuriously decorated office, the figure holding fruit appeared again and sat directly on the boss's chair in the office. The sitting middle-aged man was stunned and sat across from him. "This, Your Excellency, who is Your Excellency?" Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2491. The middle-aged man's expression suddenly changed. He was originally going to press a button under his desk, but after seeing the face of the approaching man, his expression changed and he withdrew his pressing finger. He knew the face of the man in front of him, and he even knew that he might be a strong man who could do nothing no matter whether he pressed the help button or not. Killing half the enemy forces on the planet with one blow, and several of them were at the venerable level. If he foolishly thought that he could save such a terrifying strong man by pressing the distress button, he would be afraid. It is impossible to reach the high position it is today. Haha, didn't you send someone to deliver something to me? How come you don't recognize me when you see me in person? The man sitting opposite looked at the luxurious office indifferently, stretched out his hand, and a wine glass and high-end drinks flew out of the cupboard. "Do you mind if I drink some?" "Your Excellency, please do so." Naturally, it was Jia Yan who suddenly appeared. He was a little annoyed by these local people who always wanted to get close to him, so he simply found a representative to come to see what they wanted to do. Of course, even if there was anything, he will not agree. With his level of strength, how could he care about such a noble person in the mortal world? Will someone on Earth give him a little face? On a small planet in the Empire? Sorry, the status gap between the two sides is really quite big. Gugu. It's good to use the Earthling's clone, you can taste a lot of flavors. Jia Yan drank this wine, which was quite good, and he immediately took a big sip. The man's face changed slightly. You must know that he bought this wine from the outside world. It is a high-end wine in the Empire. It is produced from a living planet with a very harsh environment in the Empire. The harvesting and transportation alone are difficult. The big problem is that it is extremely expensive, and it is a thing for the strong. An ordinary starry sky-level strongman like him cannot bear it every time he takes half a sip. This terrifying existence in front of him is actually drinking it as water. He is indeed a super strong person who can do such shocking actions. He smiled bitterly, then shook his head, and did not care about the loss of drinks. After all, if it were not for the existence in front of him, his company, all industries and even his own life would have been lost on this planet, and he would have been careless with such a benefactor. A little gain or loss, unless he is a fool, it is almost the same. Your Excellency, we got your film and television information from the government. We know that you don't want to be disturbed, so we use the previous methods to treat you as a good friend. I hope these things do not make you feel unhappy. Gu. Jia Yan was sipping wine. Hearing this, he stopped sipping wine, then put down the wine glass in his hand, and looked at the man in front of him calmly with his calm eyes. To be honest, what the other party did was quite decent, fully considering his feelings, and not thinking about too many requirements or benefits. But precisely because of such decency, Jia Yan felt uncomfortable. Because for a strong man like him, not requiring anything is the highest level requirement. There are probably 100,000 of these high-level officials and people in power on the planet who want to make demands on Jia Yan, and the demands have only one purpose, which is to continue to protect this isolated planet in the hinterland of the Empire, the only planet in the surrounding area that has not fallen. To give without asking is to please, and this kind of flattery is the highest standard requirement. If Jia Yan wants to leave this planet, he will become embarrassed. He didn't want to leave in the first place, but the behavior of these senior officials made him feel uncomfortable. Doing good deeds changed with the constraints of the other party. I know what you are going to do and what you want. Believe me, I have experienced too many such scenes in my life. Although your approach is appropriate, it will not make people comfortable, so give up and continue like this. Well, I'll leave my words here and take my leave. After Jia Yan said this calmly, he looked at the remaining half of the wine bottles, casually held the bottles in his hands, stepped back, and left the senior executive's office. The man in the high-rise office suddenly became silent when he felt that even he, a star-level powerhouse, was leaving without any notice. He felt like he was sweating profusely and fell back onto his boss chair, but he smiled. Why are you laughing? Quite simply, he got the answer he wanted to know. After taking the bottle of wine, even if the strong man didn't say anything, he would definitely not sit idly by if something happened to this planet in the future. Is this big shot, said to be from Earth, related to the teacher who came to our planet from Earth to teach? Could it be that he is really? The senior executive was mumbling, but he didn't realize that sweat was still pouring out of his body. Jia Yan's clone emerged from the subspace, and he didn't care too much about outside observers. He knew that after today passed, those people around him would disappear completely. Those people would surely understand after getting his reply. And they should also be able to think that facing themselves, the secret observers have no concealment at all. If a strong man who can span half a planet and strike any enemy with precision cannot even be distinguished by the observers around him, it would be too fake. Sure enough, when his clone was sitting in a small forest drinking wine, all the people around him who were watching Jia Yan dimly disappeared. That's good, but is this planet an ordinary planet belonging to the Empire? After walking for so many days, I really saw the difference. Jia Yan's other Earthling clone, Jia Yan, was still traveling on Earth at this time, so he quickly understood the difference between the two. Although the Empire has been losing to the Earth, it is because of Jia Yan himself, but in fact, the gap between the two sides in terms of hard power and soft power is astonishingly large. The weak one must be ditching. The two sides are not on the same level at all. Except for the fact that Earth has obtained the currency rights of the entire Orion arm due to Jia Yan's toughness, other aspects are in a complete mess. Recently, the entire civilization has been a bit, monetization has made other industries feel like they have to purchase from outside. On the other hand, looking at this empire, not to mention anything else, just saying that this ordinary planet that Jia Yan came to gave him a refreshing feeling. First of all, the industrial chain has developed to a certain extreme. The quality of people is also high enough. Even after so many wars, the entire society has not collapsed. Instead, everyone is very friendly to the victims. This is completely different. There are also the strength of strong men, personal talents, the development of science, the long history of humanities, etc. Taken together, it is simply an old and powerful civilization. The current way the Earth is ascending is a little skewed. It's all my fault, but I don't know how to correct it. During the days when Jia Yan was traveling on the Earth, everything he saw and heard made him somewhat silent, because he gave the Earth a lot of things, and also forcefully allowed the Earth to have the monetary advantage within the entire Orion arm, but this advantage has become what it is today. The shackles of the Earth have caused many people to think that since the welfare of the Earth is good, there is no need to work hard. Even those with strong talents are extremely comfortable and unwilling to contribute their own light and heat to the improvement of the Earth's overall talents. It can't continue like this, but Jia Yan is not a professional administrator. Especially now that the human heart has been shaped after decades of subtle changes, he doesn't know how to make the next change. He can't be allowed to directly cancel the entire planet. People's current high welfare will only lead to worse consequences. Forget it, I will observe for a while. If I can't come up with an answer, then leave the question to the higher UPS on Earth. Under my order and influence, even if they make decisions that are not so pleasing to the people, presumably there won't be any big problems. Ask Jia Yan to kill a small civilization with a population of tens of billions. He can do it easily, and it can even be said to be a piece of cake. But let him run a civilization well, let alone one with a population of tens of billions, even if it is given to him with a population of tens of millions, I am afraid he will have a huge headache. To be honest, Jia Yan never thought that the Earth would become like this. Although it seems that within the Earth civilization, there is still singing and dancing, and there is incomparable peace and joy, but he is a wandering strong man who has traveled to many places. When he first returned to Earth, he had already discovered the problems with Earth at a glance. It was precisely because he discovered the problem that he had so many clones on the Earth. It was one thing to see the current battle for the Orion Arm, and the other was to think of a way nearby to see if the Earth could be restored. Get back on track. Unfortunately, apart from seeing the bigger gap with the Empire now, the solution is completely unexpected. The Empire actually means nothing to the truly powerful civilization I see outside, but precisely because the distance between it and the Earth is not exaggeratedly large, the difference can be better compared. Jia Yan looked at the starry sky and stopped thinking about this problem. If he can find a solution, that would be the best. If he can't find one, even if he uses some tougher means to make himself infamy, the Earth civilization will be on the right track, such as forced reduction of welfare. Now is not the time to talk about that. Because he felt that outside this planet, there was a small space of huge pressure approaching here. Are they sending strong men above the stellar level? This batch of foreign enemy troops looks really good. Jia Yan nodded. It doesn't matter to him whether he is a star or not. Even for the clone, there is not much difference between a star-level powerhouse and a semi-star level, venerable level or something like that. It would be better to come to the stellar level. He would just be able to catch it and ask him what the reason for the outside world's attack this time was. After all, the ones I encountered before were all beings below the level of venerables, and I didn't know why even if I asked them. The star level must be in the outer star field, and its status is not considered low. Maybe I can ask something. He looked up at the sky, and then tapped lightly with his toes. The next moment, this powerful existence that no one was observing slipped into the subspace and disappeared into the woods. As mentioned above, this strong man may be a master that I can't fight against, but even so, I don't believe it. I just asked him to give up the planet. Will he still refuse? This planet is already surrounded by our army. What's the use of him fighting alone? And it is said that he is not a strong man in this empire. In this case, why is there any need to take risks when surrounded by our army? I understand him. If you show affection, he will definitely understand. In the starry sky, a huge fleet is approaching this area. The Empire is a huge civilization. If you look at the entire Orion Arm at a level of several hundred light years, its empire alone occupies a corner of nearly 100 light years. This is unique in the Orion Arm and is much larger than other civilizations. Many. So after the planet assault force here was destroyed by one man, it took several days for the surrounding fleet support to arrive. And the first fleet that came this time was the strongest among them. There is a stellar powerhouse inside. Due to the lack of information transmission back and forth over long distances, this stellar powerhouse has lost the most critical information, which is what the powerhouse who killed half of the planet's troops in the unknown Empire planet did at that time. When he arrived, he thought that the other party used the power of brain waves to sweep away half of the planet. Although this kind of thing is indeed good, if he really wants to do it, he, a stellar powerhouse, can also do it, and it is not impossible to go all out to wipe out all species on the entire planet in one blow. Therefore, he felt that this strong man who killed half of his own soldiers on the planet should be nothing. Even if it is stronger than him, it is not much stronger. In addition, the intelligence said that this guy is not a strong man in the Empire. It must be reasonable to ask him to give up this planet that is already surrounded by our army, right? The Star-class fleet officials believe that this unknown strong man who is should be trapped within the Empire. He is currently occupying the planet and will not leave because he feels that he has left the planet. If he went out to be surrounded and suppressed by the invading army like them, it would be better to rely on a planet, where at least there would be a large number of people to accompany him in life and death. Quite reasonable, isn't it? This time he came with a bit of sincerity, that is, he told the other party that as long as he gave up the planet, the surrounding invasion forces would not attack him. That guy must be grateful, right? Is it still more than 100 million kilometers away? I can't wait to see this heroic guy at my feet thanking me for sparing him, haha. A star-level body of several kilometers is inside a battleship that is more than 50 kilometers in size. For alien civilizations, a battleship that is more than 50 kilometers in size can still be produced. If it weren't for the long distance, they might have brought a planet battle fort for war. Living on a planet like that would be the most comfortable. The moment his thoughts started to disperse, this stellar powerhouse heard a calm voice coming from behind him. "Oh? Do you want me to kneel down and beg you for forgiveness? Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2492. Who? What? When did this sound come and why didn't you notice it at all? This. Boom. As soon as this star-level existence turned his head, he saw a seemingly insignificant palm stretched out to his face. It was originally as big as an ant and an elephant, but he saw that the palm easily blocked his turned head. Ah! What the hell? This star-level powerhouse found that he could not move his head, so he tried hard, but he could not twist it. It seemed that compared with his opponent, his own strength was like a worm shaking a big tree. "Don't panic, I'm not here to kill you, but if you keep this attitude, I won't show mercy." The calm voice behind him was so calm that it was unimaginable. It made this star-level expert who was struggling desperately feel an uncontestable feeling of a towering mountain rising from the bottom of his heart. He knew that this feeling was because the other party was much stronger than him. Among his forces, only the galaxy-level leader of the forces had such great power. He doesn't understand who is strong or weak, just like an ant can't see much difference between an elephant and an ant. "Okay, Senior, I was wrong. I don't know what Senior does." He obediently stopped moving, and the palm that was pressing against his cheek was retracted. Now, this star-level powerhouse had a chance to see the mysterious powerhouse suddenly coming from the front. Even though he already knew from the feeling just now that what was coming was just an extremely small creature, he was still shocked when he actually saw the true face of this powerful man. So small. How could his body, which was several kilometers long, be slapped down by a creature that was more than 1 meter long? The stellar powerhouse no longer knows what language to use to describe this incredible and aggrieved feeling. Even though the opponent must be extremely powerful, it is embarrassing for a big man to be controlled by a creature as small as dust and not dare to fight back. The ordinary strong beings in the universe tend to be stronger and bigger. Except for a few gifted races, the smaller the creatures, the weaker they are. At least there are not many exceptions around here. So he felt unwilling to be controlled by such a small creature for the first time. But the feeling of unwillingness only rose for a moment, and was completely suppressed by him. After all, he was not a fool. The comparison of strength just now made him clearly know that compared with the other party's own strength, there was a world of difference, not to mention that he was now only then did he realize that all the subordinates around him, including at least half of the approaching fleet, had been suppressed by this strong man's momentum. Otherwise, with the commotion just now, his subordinates should have rushed to him to rescue him. However, under the suppression of this powerful being, the entire fleet seemed to have not even broken a wave, and it was surprisingly quiet. Jia Yan looked at the other party's image of a good baby and was quite satisfied. In this starry sky, there are fewer strong people, so every slightly stronger existence pays attention to character or something like that. Although this also makes the creatures around here have their own unique strong characters, which are not as good as those in the galaxy. It's the same as in the central star territory. Even the galaxy level kneels down when asked, which is a bit like the feeling of a real strong person. But at the same time, the disadvantage is that even if the strongest strong person comes, there will be some thorns here. The kind who are not afraid of death are the ones who want to fight with you. Fortunately, this star is not that kind of existence. I'm asking you now, are you going to that planet to suppress the powerful people on it? Jia Yan pointed to the planet in the distance. Yes, I was the one who used to suppress the strong men on that planet. A few days ago, a strong man suddenly appeared and gave a blow to all our soldiers fighting on that planet. Kill, so The stellar powerhouse just said a few words, and then he suddenly thought of something from his own words, and then stared dumbfoundedly at the human man in front of him who was calm and composed, listening to his words. Senior, the person mentioned in the intelligence is not you, right? What you think? Jia Yan didn't admit it or deny it. He just asked a rhetorical question. This sentence almost confirmed his identity. Oh my God, these people are just bastards. Seniors are 1,000 times more powerful than me. They actually let small characters like us deal with you, seniors. I look down on seniors so much. Seniors, this matter really has nothing to do with me. Relationship. I am just an ordinary star-level person from an outside force, so please give me a gentle punishment, senior. This star-level person can be considered a well-rounded person. As soon as he found out about Jia Yan's role on the planet, he just straight up excused himself. I never take it lightly. It depends on how you answer my question next. And I don't care about this planet very much. But since I protected it last time, I won't give up halfway. Do you understand what I mean? I understand. The junior will leave immediately after replying to the senior's words. And I will never come again in the future, and I will prevent everyone's nearby troops from disturbing the senior's cultivation. Seeing how sensible he was, Jia Yan finally smiled. Come, sit down and answer my questions. Jia Yan flew to the side of the tall ship, sat on the top, and looked at the stellar powerhouse calmly. There is no way, in front of a creature several kilometers in size, such a human body of more than 1 meter has no momentum at all. Even if he stays in a battleship that can barely accommodate him, to a human clone like Jia Yan, it is an open area that is dozens of kilometers long. So flying to a high place is at least condescending and a bit imposing. However, this star class did not look down upon Jia Yan because of his small body. Moreover, they had guessed beforehand that this person should be the Jia Yan from the Earth, and Jia Yan and the giant mosquito, the relationship between them makes them deeply afraid. If this creature is the clone of a giant mosquito, then his real body would not be smaller than his, it would be much larger. Senior, if you have any questions, please ask. First of all, let me ask, how many forces are composed of your troops that invade the Orion Arm this time? What are their strengths? Xingji knew that Jia Yan would definitely ask this question, and he had already been prepared. And this kind of thing will definitely be known to everyone in the future. After all, their coalition forces have just caught the Orion Arm by surprise. After a while, the people in the Orion Arm will always have various ways to know where the enemy comes from. Our troops coming to your star field this time are composed of 3 star fields. The troops can be said to be countless. There are not many strong people in the Orion Arm now, at least not many star-level ones. It seems that including me there are only a dozen or so, but those star regions behind us are all forces with strong galactic-level players, and one star region even has 2 galactic-level powerhouses. As far as I know, if the war develops to a certain level, to this extent, it is not impossible for these galaxy-level people to come in person. Oh. It's not a force, but the 3 major star regions. And there are still several major galaxy-level forces dispatched. After Jia Yan heard this, there was nothing to be shocked about. The strong men who attacked the Orion Arm last time were all galaxy-level. This time, the movement was even bigger. Maybe there were more than just a few galaxy-level behind him. The possible number, it might even surprise him slightly. It's just that this time it's not a separate force, but 3 star regions sending troops in name, which is more exaggerated than the last time. But that's it? Jia Yan pondered, feeling that things would not be so simple. Because the experience of the last war is still fresh in his mind, Jia Yan defeated so many strong men with his giant mosquito body, so that several major star regions in the outside world had to attack the Orion Arms, which had lost its defense. Held an equal dialogue instead of immediately attacking each other. When they were so weak, they didn't dare to take action. Now the Orion Arm has been talking to the outside world for decades. Even though its strength is still weak, after these decades of first contact, the Orion Arm has not only been reborn, but its strength has become stronger. 1 to 2%, double or triple are not lies. Logically speaking, under such circumstances, the Orion Arm is more difficult to hit, and they will not be able to move again, but why? There is definitely something wrong in it. Thinking of this time, Jia Yan pondered for a moment, and finally asked the star level for the information he wanted to know more. Okay, let me ask you again, is your invasion this time supported by external forces or individuals? I hope you will tell me honestly. Jia Yan's words made the stellar star startled, and then he looked ugly. It was obvious that he knew something, but this was important information and he didn't want to say it. But in the end, when the surrounding air gradually condensed into a heavy pressure like water due to the power of a certain strong man, making all the creatures on the entire battleship breathless, this star level the psychological defense finally collapsed. Compared with being blamed by his own strong men in the future, life and death now are more important. At worst, he will leave the star field he is loyal to. He is not a local strong man in that star field. After thinking about it, this star immediately stopped making any concealments and started talking eloquently. Senior, I just said it. I won't hide anything about what I say next. I hope that after hearing this, Senior can abide by the agreement and let me go. That's natural. Your life is not important to me, Jia Yan nodded. It's like this. Our star field has already stopped coveting the Orion Arm. After all, this Orion Arm has a giant mosquito that is comparable to the evolved beast 200,000 years ago. After saying that, he looked at Jia Yan and found that Jia Yan was unmoved. He could not draw any conclusion from Jia Yan's face about whether it was related to the giant mosquito. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. But the talking couldn't stop. Since we can't be enemies with the Orion Arm, or we can't be enemies with the Orion Arm for the time being, we are ready for trade, and have been piloting a lot of larger business models recently, and have also been in contact with the Empire. Jia Yan nodded again. He thought of the besieged Imperial Princess Suya on another civilized planet. This little girl seemed to go to the border to handle trade business. Of course, she must have other intentions, but overall, the intention must also be for trade and commerce. But since even the other party wanted to trade, why did it suddenly go back on its word? He was a little curious. We have made plans to be long-term friends with the Orion Arm. At least recently, we have not had the slightest idea of going to war with the Orion Arm. But the stellar powerhouse shook his head and sighed. That day, a magical power suddenly came. Near our star field, some powerful people were directly hit by that power. Among them, there were many star-level powerful people, and they died after being hit. Oh! Hearing this, Jia Yan became interested. If he had the strength, he could easily die from being brushed against a star. But the problem was that it was his body, and even a clone would have difficulty killing him casually from being brushed against it. In other words, the intensity of this power has definitely reached an astonishing level, and it may even be high level in the galaxy, or even, region lord. If it was a domain lord, then Jia Yan would be even more interested. After all, being able to find a territory lord in this starry sky with not many powerful people is more difficult than finding a needle in a haystack. Jia Yan has never heard of how many territory lords are near this starry sky. If he really comes, he wants to see them. Is the territory lord of this area really like the legendary? So weak? Yes, they are weak. How can they be strong without communication? In the galaxy's central star territory, there are jokes circulating in more than one place, saying that a relatively weak and powerful person in the galaxy's central star territory is messing around in the galaxy's central star territory. I couldn't go on anymore, so I ran to the edge of the galaxy, where I met a strong man who had clearly broken through to the domain master. However, after a few punches and kicks, the first-level peak powerhouse of the galaxy, who originally thought he would die, found that he was so damned. He actually beat the domain lord. Then he dominated that area, treated the domain lord as his subordinate, and lived a dream life. Moreover, such legends are spread in more than one place and are probably true. At least from Jia Yan's point of view, if he had territory lords on Lata's side, except for the Zerg Queen, who was invincible even in desolate areas, other territory lords might not necessarily be able to defeat the center of the galaxy. The primary peak of the galaxy in the star field. So he wanted to see if the trouble was caused by a certain domain lord here. He was quite interested and asked his clone to fight with the other party. Maybe he could really defeat the other party? That would be fun. He would be able to brag to others later, saying that even his clones were able to destroy the territory lord. It sounded so nice to say it. The existence of this power is. Xingxingji saw that his words really aroused Jia Yan's interest. He also understood that his life and death depended on this moment. He swallowed and pretended to be a ghost and spoke in a cadence, which brought the sense of mystery to the extreme. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2493. What is it? As expected, Jia Yan was attracted by the creature's words. Seeing that he was pretending to be a ghost, he smiled and agreed with him. Senior, this force is actually an extremely terrifying force field. Creatures that are close to it will die directly even at the star level. As for what kind of strong people are inside, we don't know. From the beginning to the end, only one being in this force field appears in our sight. An extremely terrifying force field? Can just a fluctuation of energy kill a star? Hearing this, Jia Yan was slightly moved. Especially for the existence that appeared in the surrounding star field, he always felt that this should be the instigator of the war against the Orion arm. However, Jia Yan did not continue to speak. As a super strong person, if he keeps asking questions, the other party will have the right to speak. Just now, the star level was mysterious in his words, which aroused Jia Yan's interest. It is a manifestation of his conscious or unconscious struggle for the right to speak. If Jia Yan really became that weak, it would be impossible for him to develop such strength now. Moreover, he controls the opponent's life. It would be too silly for him to become a weak force under such circumstances. Seeing that Jia Yan stopped talking, the stellar powerhouse was slightly startled, and then realized that his situation was not that of a person with the right to speak, but of a prisoner. Well, senior, the strong man who walked out of the force field was the culprit of the war between our forces and the Orion arm. He said a certain name, and after hearing the rumors about that name, he ordered those around us to Star Territory begins a battle with the Orion arm, but even now, we don't know the specific purpose of this strong man. Logically speaking, even if the strong man in the force field does not take action, the strength of this strong man who reveals his true body will be. I'm afraid it's not something that any nearby galaxy-level powerhouse can match. Hearing this, Jia Yan pondered again. He could roughly imagine that the coming strong man might be his enemy. After all, he came to a place like Orion's arm, and then ordered the strong men around him to take action. However, this being did not take action himself, which showed that this person must have concerns, which proved that this being knew himself. Maybe this strong man even knows his own strength and doesn't dare to take action. As for that force field behind him, Jia Yan said he didn't quite believe it. For the strong people in this backward area, the only explanation for something like a force field is that there are strong people inside. But for Jia Yan, there are too many possible explanations for this thing. For example, his Nanyo Palace, before it was confiscated by Jia Yan and became his own, didn't it also have a strong field? It would make ordinary domain owners die inside. And Jia Yan is actually trying to think of ways to add more force fields and the like to the palace, which will have the effect of trapping and killing enemies in the future, but he doesn't have much direction or clues yet. In short, he didn't believe that the so-called force field was a strong person. Of course, it was possible. Even if it was a strong person, he wouldn't be too afraid. As mentioned before, Jia Yan is confident in his own strength. He will never believe that he has come to the Orion arm, which is far behind the Milky Way central star region and the black hole region, and that he can encounter any enemy stronger than himself. He was really unlucky. He should have encountered a stronger existence in the central star field of the Milky Way or the black hole area, but it was not his turn to be in the Orion arm. Well, tell me, what kind of strong man is he who came forward to let you attack our Orion arm? Maybe I know him. Jia Yan said calmly. The star-level powerhouse was slightly stunned. The tiny human being in front of me is actually so calm. That is a single energy force field that can kill stars. At least their galaxy-level beings were shocked and confused when they heard the performance of this force field. But this human-looking being was actually so calm. Calm is the reason why he is deliberately trying to calm himself down, or is it because he is confident and not afraid of the force field? This star level is impossible to guess, but if the existence in front of you is because of your own strength and you are not afraid of the force field, your strength will be. Thinking of this, he lowered his head slightly, showing a more respectful look. Senior, if you ask other star-level experts, they may not know so much, but I happen to have personally seen one of the star-level people who came into existence, so I can answer your question. He sighed and said, this strong man who came out of the force field is actually a female strong man. His strength is unfathomable. At least our galaxy-level adults cannot pose the slightest threat to her. According to our adults, it seems that the energy level of this female powerhouse is not much different from his, but in terms of actual combat experience and the degree of energy refinement, my adults are not the slightest threat to her. This woman, one female creature, can probably kill a large number of nearby galaxy-level creatures. Female creature. Jia Yan was startled for a moment, and then he thought of something. After all, one of the reasons why he returned to the Orion arm was precisely because of a female creature. His human clone frowned. Please tell me specifically about the appearance of this female creature. It is colorful and can be about 20 kilometers away. Although I do not belong to the same race as this powerful female creature, I think she is extremely beautiful and is the most perfect species in the world. Call. Jia Yan took a long breath, because just through such a sentence, he understood that the coming female creature was the same Kun who told him that he would find the Orion arm, and he was also from inside the black hole area. The concubine of the master of Shanlu's power, Shanlv. When she first met Jia Yan, she thought that Jia Yan was her destined partner and would betray her current partner. However, Jia Yan was a human on Earth and would never accept such a strong female, so she spoke harshly. She refused, but she said she wanted to find the Orion arm. At this moment, Jia Yan was really frightened. I originally thought that this female creature who lived in the black hole area, and was the pampered type, would not be able to cross half the galaxy and find her hometown. But what I never expected was that she actually found her. And still in this extremely exaggerated way. I am afraid that no male creature can accept such an extreme female creature. Fortunately, he didn't agree to her because of her appearance, otherwise Jia Yan might not be able to live in peace now. Huh, it turns out it's him. Jia Yan snorted coldly. The heart of the star-level expert who was listening to this suddenly jumped. Although it is still not certain that Jia Yan is the one from Earth, just hearing that Jia Yan actually said the words about knowing that female creature, it is known that Jia Yan actually knows that strong female. And you have to know that the extremely mysterious and unfathomable strong female can easily kill her own master. Now the human creature in front of her actually talks about her in this tone. Doesn't it mean that this person is it possible that the human creature is similar in strength to the female creature? At least they are capable of dialogue. This star-level powerhouse is not a fool. After listening to Jia Yan's words and looking at the behavior of the female creature, he was already shocked, and the idea that the two parties must be related came to his mind. And the reason why the female creature came to this starry sky, could it be because of the human creature in front of her? No. It should be said that it is the real body behind this human creature, right? For a moment, the star-level powerhouse felt that his breathing became heavier. It felt like I had learned some incredible secret. Okay, I know the information. Thank you for your answer. Let's go. I hope you will fulfill your promise to me and will not let other strong men or troops come to this planet again. In addition, for example, on the other side of the Earth, don't go either. I don't mind if the Orion arm has gone through some experience, but I do mind if some places are damaged. Do you understand what I mean? Senior, no, sir, I understand. I will fulfill my promise well. Please forgive me, sir. As if being granted amnesty, the star class quickly bowed its head to Jia Yan and agreed to Jia Yan's request. And he has more drama in his heart, thinking about all this battle. If it is just a game between two super strong men, then they are just pawns. The behavior within the arms of Orion must not be so unscrupulous anymore. Yes, they originally believed that they came to attack the Orion arm because the strong man had some personal matters or personal grudges, but now they know that the person in the Orion arm is probably with the female strong man, or even perhaps after being able to compete with the master of the force field behind them. Would they still dare to behave like that? I don't dare, I really don't dare, because in front of that kind of existence, these seemingly powerful star fields, including the galaxy-level stars of the Starfield Lords, are probably just toys. If the two strong men decide the winner or reconcile without playing games, wouldn't these subordinates who were doing the trick be abandoned in an instant? Very good, then I won't give it away. Jia Yan nodded calmly, and then his clone stepped back and disappeared into nothingness as if teleporting. So this gentleman was so close to us just now? What kind of strength does this have? The star-level powerhouse looked at Jia Yan's departure and seemed to disappear in an instant. He couldn't even understand whether the other party used the subspace talent, so he was in a daze. After trembling for a while, the strong man quickly braced himself and took out the communicator. He wanted to inform his boss, the only galaxy-level powerhouse among their forces, of what he had discovered here. As long as he told this galaxy-level person, he would not be able to control how Shangfeng made the decision. But at least one thing is for sure. After returning from this mission, he will immediately resign from his responsibilities and quickly return to the interior of the star field, even hiding in corners so that no one can find him or his family. If he didn't hide in the nook and cranny, he would probably be affected by the next trend. After all, the Orion arm was different from what they thought before. There might be a great God here that they couldn't even imagine. Who would dare to know for sure what was behind them? Will the female creature and the strong man in the force field brought by the female creature help them? Even though the person in Orion's arm is not as powerful as the female creature, he still doesn't look weak. Haven't you heard a saying, when gods fight, mortals suffer? So he turned around and hid. This guy is very obedient. On a planet far away in the starry sky, a man seemed to disappear for a moment, then reappeared in the forest where he had just been sitting. He looked up at the sky above his head, and then smiled slightly. Thinking of this, Jia Yan ignored the leaving stellar troops, lowered his head, and continued what he had just done in the forest. That is to cut open the flesh of one of the beasts on this planet and then roast it on the fire. As for the average quality of people on this planet, they all do not kill wild animals. Sorry, Jia Yan is not from this planet, or even from the Empire, so their rules cannot restrain Jia Yan, and Jia Yan is strong enough, so why does he need to abide by so many red tapes? Concubine Kun. While eating the food, Jia Yan's thoughts had already been transferred to his real body. But here in the real body, the processing speed is much faster, and the whole thinking situation becomes more comprehensive. In the main hall, he silently felt the information transmitted by the clone, and pondered slightly. If it was Concubine Kun, he somewhat believed it. After all, this female creature had always been ahead of him, and it seemed that her determination was quite firm. In fact, Jia Yan doesn't quite understand that for alien creatures, it seems that if she thinks they are suitable, then both parties will be suitable. Could it be that their thoughts are all based on their own incomparable ego? But it's right to think about it. In a universe where the strong is supreme, there are very few female creatures who have reached relatively strong strength. Behind each one, there are a large number of stronger people pursuing them. If there are many on Earth, female girls are those who are used to being exaggerated and domineering. In the universe, female creatures who only rely on their identity as female creatures think that the whole universe owes them and must obey their orders. What's more, there are countless. It is said that these strong women have made jokes more than once, and of course they have made big noises more than once, including some major events recorded in history. For example, one time, a female creature at the beginning of the galaxy was envious of the private planet of another strong man's wife at a gathering of strong men, so she wanted to snatch it away. As a result, the husband behind both parties, that is, my partner, took action, and the final battle got bigger and bigger. Even after the fight, I didn't know the reason for starting it. It triggered a big war in a local area of the central star field of the Milky Way. It is even said that 2 intergalactic mid-level warriors died. Of great power. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2494. So, beauty brings disaster. This statement is universal even if it is put into the starry sky. I have to be careful, even the middle-level powerful people in the galaxy are destroyed in the hands of female creatures, and I am nothing. Although he is not too worried about his own life, there are many precedents, and Jia Yan is also a little vigilant. In addition, there may be some problems with the so-called force field energy. Why this woman came to the Orion arm so quickly is also a bit strange. I have to pay more attention, otherwise the incident will go in a direction I don't want to see. If you go, it will be too late to regret it. Jia Yan allowed his clone to stay on this planet like this, but at this moment, with his warning about the star level, and some of the abilities displayed by his clone, it was enough to scare Xiao Xiao. It is estimated that there are many people around him. For a long time, no one will dare to make trouble again. In other words, even if this clone stays here, there will not be too much trouble coming to your door in the future. At best, the clone can replace the real body and play here for a while. It's really a wave of trouble. Another clone is coming to cause trouble. Jia Yan was startled, then smiled, and was not worried. It turned out that the problem came from his grandson Jia 11's place. The stone man's clone over there heard a relatively strong movement, which woke up his clone. Oh, it's a venerable level creature. Do you want to travel through this terrain? Jia Yan's stone man clone opened his eyes indifferently and looked at the venerable level creature flying in the magma layer in front of him in the subspace. He just looked at it indifferently, because he didn't think that a venerable would cause the slightest danger to his grandson in the base. The base was built according to a strong defense level. It was originally built in the magma layer with the combat effectiveness of the venerable level in mind. Even if the venerable level has the ability to destroy the world, it is difficult to display it in the magma. After all, the venerable is not a star, let alone a galaxy, and does not have the power to truly face and change most of the natural environment on his own. Damn it! The venerable level creature was immersed in the magma, raised its claws, and pointed downwards. Then, due to the obstruction of the magma, more than half of its power was reduced. The other half of the power bombarded the base's defensive shell, and it was unable to move forward. This is to defend the power of the venerable level. Inside the base, Jia 11 let out a long breath after feeling that after the earth-shattering force bombarded the entire base, which was completely intact. Suya on his side also looked slightly relieved. Well. But after they breathed a sigh of relief, they both looked at their hands in embarrassment. It turned out that after the shock just now, the two people who were chatting came closer to each other unexpectedly. Then Jia 11 naturally put her arms around Suya's shoulders, and then Suya hugged Jia 11's arms tightly with both hands. This damn love. Jia Yan, who happened to be watching the scene in the subspace, felt it was irritating to his eyes. Although his Earthling clone is enjoying the sweetest couple relationship in his 2 lifetimes with his wife Satsuma-chan on Earth, he is now 100 years old after all, and Satsuma-chan is older than him. It feels impossible to be 10 years old. How old is the pure feeling of love? Jia Yan was a little jealous of his grandson. How could he still find such a relationship? It's a pity that there are so many family backgrounds behind the two people, as well as there are too many problems between the Earth and the Empire. Whether this seemingly innocent and beautiful love affair will be feasible in the future is still unknown. Even Jia Yan can't decide. After all, these two statuses, if his children are together, will it significantly change the overall situation, or even make all situations develop for the worse? So he can only say that he is watching. In the future, if his children choose to be together, he will approve it, but if it ends up being separated, he won't come forward to help. It's hard to say what will affect the overall situation, because the two of them have to face too many problems together. Even if they are barely together, even Jia Yan can't be sure whether it will be a tragedy in the end. So after he was envious, jealous, and resentful, he remained silent. Just like when the other Princess Suya immediately rejected the marriage with the Jia family, the Jia family was actually quite resistant to this matter at the beginning because everyone was a discerning person and knew that the imperial princess and the Jia family were. It is difficult for Sun Yat-sen to have a good ending. The status of both parties is very difficult. Hey, this kid doesn't hang out with anyone, but he hangs out with the royal family of the empire. Even if you find a prince's daughter like Princess, it's fine. But with Suya, it's hard. Jia Yandu shook his head, feeling that his grandson's future relationship would not be so smooth. It depends on what the two of them think about in the future. If they want to break through the obstacles and come together resolutely, then as the most terrifying elder of the Jia family, he will not stand idly by. And if they separated, Jia Yan wouldn't be unhappy, At most he would just sigh. If something unexpected happens later, don't leave my side. I'm afraid that this venerable existence has just begun. Jia 11 said casually, seemingly indifferent. Well, okay, Suya blushed, and then murmured in a whisper like a mosquito. Both of them had strange thoughts because of the unintentional contact just now, and even their conversations no longer felt like tit for tat. Princess. Princess. How are you? However, a knock on the door from outside the small garden brought the two young men back to their senses. Suya quickly returned to her original noble princess appearance, walked to the door calmly, pressed the emergency button to open the door from the inside, and then saw her personal maid from the outside, standing by the door. I'm fine. Are there any venerable level creatures attacking outside? How are the casualties? Hey, Mr. Jia is here too. Princess, it's okay outside. This venerable level being has not broken through to the inside of the base, but they all said that there will definitely be more venerable level ones in the future, or even those above the venerable level 1. The strong one is coming, what should we do now? The maid was the one who first moved with Jia 11 and was later given up by Jia 11 in the lifeboat, so her sense of Jia 11 was extremely good. Jia 11 nodded slightly when he saw her, as a greeting. Then he passed by the two of them. Suya looked at this figure and really wanted to call him out. Unfortunately, in the eyes of outsiders, the two parties looked like two enemies. After all, one of them was the princess of the empire and the other was the Geo family of the earth. This to any intelligent life in the Orion arm, it seems like water and fire are incompatible identities. So she couldn't show anything. Creak. Back in her room, Jia 11 gently stuck the sword in her hand against the wall. Is the venerable level here? Come on, if a battle is really unavoidable, then I will try to see if my Xin Kong primary level strength can pose any threat to the venerable level. I am from the Jia family. Jia 11 muttered something silently, with a strange light shining in her eyes. Jia Yan was speechless for a while in the subspace. This kid, relying on a sword I gave him, actually dared to say something and jump across so many levels and want to fight against the existence of the venerable level? You must know that the venerable level who collided outside is not just an ordinary venerable level. It's just a level, but an intermediate level existence of a venerable. He is much bolder than I was back then. Jia Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Although he used to jump up to kill enemies, he usually jumped up to the same level. This guy was much better than him. He actually wanted to jump up to a big level, and he didn't stop at one big level. Has he forgotten that when he didn't get the sword before, he couldn't even beat him? Alas, I don't know what this kid inherited from me, but I feel like he inherited his recklessness and stubbornness. Jia Yan's rockman's arm gently stroked his chin and thought for a long time. Then he made a decision. He decided to play a game. Young man, with your current strength, you can't defeat those venerables outside. You must know that in addition to the venerable who just attacked, there are several other venerables in the outside world. Even if you have unparalleled fighting power, you can solve one, but can you solve them all? Who? The sudden sound that appeared in Jia 11's ears scared the young man to jump out of the bed where he had just laid down, and looked at the air around him in surprise. Stop looking for it, I am the soul that lives in this sword on the ground, a former galaxy-level powerhouse. The sound was disembodied, and it was impossible to tell where it came from. The soul in the sword? This. Jia 11 was shocked and quickly looked at the ordinary-looking one-handed sword on the ground. You don't believe it, just watch. After finishing speaking, the sword flew up out of thin air, and it felt extremely powerful. Jia 11 stretched out his hand to grab the sword hilt, but the sword hilt suddenly flew away as if it had self-awareness, causing his lightning shot to miss. This, senior, please don't lie to me. It's impossible for me to believe that there is a soul on the sword. This is not a fantasy world. There is no such thing as a soul among the strong men in the universe. Jia 11 was quite smart. She immediately thought of what she had learned and concluded that the soul thing should be fake. Oh, young man, you have only seen so much of the universe. This entire Orion arm is just a drop in the ocean of the Milky Way. Do you think there are no soul cultivators outside? That would be too ignorant. This is not what I said, everyone I know said so. I don't believe in any soul theory. Senior, if you want to play tricks on me, please restrain yourself. I will not be deceived so easily. Jia 11 looked upright. Ha ha ha, it seems that not only you are ignorant, but the people who teach you are also ignorant. There are so many races in the universe, and there are countless lives. Not to mention you, even the various cultivation plans have been born. I dare not say that I have heard of everything, but you, a kid, dare to speak so brazenly. Who is the senior? Didn't I say it? I am the soul attached to this sword. You were able to jump up and fight the enemy before, all because of my contribution. What yin and yang dao of yours? Without my amplification, do you think you would have a chance? Defeat an enemy that is so much stronger than you. This. The mysterious voice that appeared out of nowhere said this, making Jia 11 speechless for a moment. Speechless. Suddenly, the guy who claimed to be the soul shouted out his cultivation techniques in one breath, and even said that the energy was blessed by the soul of the sword body. Jia 11 had never told anyone the secret. Senior, I believe you are the one. I wonder why you are willing to show up now when you refused to show up before. Jia 11 wisely chose to trust the other party. After all, in this situation, he felt that he could not deal with this sword, so he chose to trust the other party out of strength considerations. Moreover, this sword not only revealed his secret, but also made Jia 11 suddenly remember that this sword was just a sword that he picked up from the ground casually. Afterwards, he asked so many people, but no one knew. People say they know this sword, and there is no research on yin and yang in the space. In other words, the sword itself should have nothing to do with this civilization, but why? It will appear in the base, and even at critical moments, it will appear at your hand. This seems to be confirmed from the side. This sword should be possessed by a strong man, and it came to the door on its own initiative. Hey hey. In the subspace, Jia Yan's stone giant clone grinned. The little guy looks quite smart, but he is still a child after all. Once he is deceived, he will not be able to figure it out. He still lacks experience. However, Jia Yan does know that in this galaxy, there is actually a race that only cultivates the so-called soul. Unfortunately, this race is not only mysterious, but also does not have many powerful people, so he has no chance to meet it. At least even if a strong man of that race appears here, he may not be able to escape Jia 11's capture. So he is really lying to the children. Okay kid, do you think your current combat effectiveness can handle the next crisis? Although I don't think so, I think that as long as I hold the sword possessed by you, senior, and pose a certain threat to a revered person, I can still do it. Jia 11 said sternly. Shit, why do you think so highly of yourself? A strong man who is truly ready to walk in the starry sky must have a full understanding of his own fighting power and abilities. Look at yourself, after you get the sword I possess, are you so arrogant that you still want to fight against the venerable? I think you may not even be able to defeat the slightly stronger starry sky level. How can it be? After listening to Jia Yan's words, Jia 11 was startled. He thought that he was invincible in the starry sky and could not be defeated. Do you think you can beat it? Very good, let's give it a try. Buzz. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying energy was uploaded from the sword body. Jia 11 felt that she had no ability to resist at all, and was directly swept away by this force. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2495. Jia 11 originally believed that in this world, there was no such mysterious and unpredictable people as the Chinese clan on Earth. As a direct descendant of the Jia family, his level of contact is already very, very advanced. He has seen even stellar-level experts many times. But there was no one being who truly made him feel that he had the power of a god. Therefore, he believes that such divine and first-class characters should not exist in reality. Even if they are strong, they are just huge creatures that use force to defeat cleverness and crush them with strength. But what he saw now completely shocked him. Because he had just been enveloped by the random energy of the soul-like creature, and the next moment, the world in front of him had completely changed, entering an illusory space. Young man, don't be too surprised. As a galaxy-level powerhouse, it's normal to have this kind of skill. And what you may not know is that even a venerable level powerhouse can do similar methods. You can only the effect may not be good. The ethereal voice became even more ethereal. His inscrutable words spoke to Jia 11 calmly in the space, making Jia 11's face become slightly solemn. His previous bohemian appearance and the background behind it were all because of his family. It was precisely because he grew up in the Jia family and deeply understood the power behind his family that he was arrogant. But now, with this unpredictable ability appearing in front of him, he began to feel less confident in the existence of the background behind the Jia family. Even though his grandfather was very strong, could he be as strong as this? In other words, this soul creature is really a galaxy-level powerhouse. Doesn't he have the strength of the giant mosquito ancestor who helped Orion avoid it in the Orion arm? Senior, I know how powerful you are, but can you let me out now? There may be danger in the outside world, so I have to. Jia 11 admitted that she had misjudged the person and her words became kinder. But halfway through his words, he was interrupted by the other party. So you still want to deal with the venerable level? Haha. I said that you might not even be able to defeat the stronger starry sky level. If you don't believe me, give it a try. In front of Jia 11's eyes, accompanied by the words of this voice, a figure gradually emerged from the mist-like air. This is a figure that looks like an earthling, but the figure has no face, and the whole thing feels like a dummy. But he also had a knife-shaped weapon in his hand, and the aura gradually rising on his body reached a starry sky level. Okay, I also got the sword in your hand for you. Let's fight with this starry sky level illusory existence and see the strength of the same level that can crush you. In addition, I want to emphasize that the existence is not controlled by me personally, but is a strong figure created based on the real person I met while traveling, so what you are fighting is equivalent to a real person. I will not do any tricks, so give it a try. After the voice finished speaking, the figure in front of Jia 11, without saying a word, had already drawn out his knife-shaped weapon, pointed it at Jia 11, and raised the knife to kill. Yes, this voice is of course Jia Yan. The figure he created was indeed a real strong creature. However, the original shape of the creature may not be human-shaped, but Jia Yan simulated it into a human shape so that his grandson could understand the moves more easily. Power levels are the same. He can guarantee that there will be no fraud. And he is also quite sure that his grandson seems to be powerful at the same level in this Orion arm, but compared with this shadow, he is definitely weak, and not a little bit weaker. Reason. The reason is too simple. Because the figure he simulated was not a creature from other places, but from North Star. Among the creatures in the North Superstar, if you just pull out a being of the same level, if you put it to the outside world, especially in a backward area like the Orion arm, it will definitely crush the same level and be completely invincible. What's more, the starry sky level that Jia Yan simulated was one of his subordinates who was a soldier in the North Star. If he could become a soldier with the strength of the starry sky level, that soldier definitely has two skills. At least when Jia Yan handed over his Jia Yan Jun to others, none of his subordinates died, which shows that his abilities and methods are good. Therefore, Jia Yan is sure that even if Jia 11 explodes with 200% combat power, it is impossible to defeat this shadow. Watch me block it. When Jia 11 noticed that the other party was coming with a sword, her expression changed drastically. She directly picked up the sword in her hand and slashed across it. He discovered that the sword in his hand was made of Jia Yan's energy. His original sword was leaning against the wall of the outside world, but he could not find the difference between the two at all. These are the methods and abilities of a terrifying strong man. It is possible for Jia Yan to create a fake world. A starry sky level like Jia 11, or even a powerhouse several levels stronger than the starry sky level, will be defeated by Jia Yan. Yan is trapped in the world created by his brainwave power, and may never find himself in a false world for the rest of his life. You know, this is still a false world created by Jia Yan's clone, and his consuming a clone to control certain characters can still be miraculous in certain situations, so once this method is used, it is really weird and practical. It's just that Jia Yan was more accustomed to solving problems through direct combat, so he didn't show this kind of power. Just because he didn't reveal it doesn't mean he doesn't know how to do it. Although he's not as powerful as a strong person with professional hallucination talent, it's not too far behind. How is it possible? This sword can't even hit it? In the hallucination, Jia 11 had counterattacked with a sword. She just turned slightly to the side of the knife holder to avoid his slashing, and then cut the knife with one hand. Jia 11 was extremely horrified to find that her body had been cut into pieces. Two halves. Oh no. Jia 11 was really frightened this time and was sweating profusely. But the next moment, he found that he was standing on the same spot again, his body intact. He understood that this was the domain of that senior. As long as he wanted to, he could not die. In other words, the body he thought of now was probably not his own body. Horrible. This kind of method can be called a truly unpredictable and powerful person. How is it? Do you understand what it is like to be the strongest at the same level? Senior, I understand. I am probably nothing in front of a truly strong man. But senior, I wonder what is the purpose of setting up this space for me? Or does senior just want to tease me? Although Jia 11 was aware of his shortcomings, his tone of voice was still arrogant. After all, a person's temper developed since childhood is difficult to change. Besides, he was still a young man of 17 or 18 years old, so how could he give up so easily? No, your name is Jia 11, right? I used to have an old relationship with the Jia family, so I met you this time, so I just want to return the favor. Although the sword in your hand is where I stay, it will be my future. I will not help you fight. You first strengthen yourself in my space. When you think you are strong enough, I will let you out. When the time comes, if you want to fight with the venerable or the powerful star-level person, they won't care about you, so you can return a favor to the Jia family. What do you think? This. Jia 11 didn't expect that such a being would actually owe favors to the Jia family, which meant that her grandfather, who she thought was inferior to his predecessors, might not be as weak as she thought. As a grandson, he no longer knows much about the relationship between his grandfather Jia Yan and Giant Mosquito. Even though there are all kinds of rumors on the internet and outside, some say that Jia Yan is the clone of Giant Mosquito, and some say that Giant Mosquito is Jia Yan. Jia Yan's clone, and there are exaggerations to say that the entire Jia family is the clone of Jia Yan alone. He was not affected by those rumors, so he always believed that the Giant Mosquito was the Giant Mosquito, and his grandfather was his grandfather, and no matter what outsiders said, he would not waver in his belief. So all of a sudden, when he heard that this self-proclaimed galaxy-level soul powerhouse actually said that he had an old relationship with his ancestors and that he owed his family a debt of gratitude, he immediately placed his grandfather in a higher position. As for the person to whom the senior owes a favor, maybe it's not his grandfather Jia Yan? How can it be? Jia 11 is much clearer about this. Although the whole family is full of talents, if the strongest grandfather is thrown away, the family is afraid that it will soon fall into a weaker family, that is, his grandmother Satsamakan. It's comparable to Dad Jiarong's semi-star level, but this kind of strength is not the strongest in the entire Orion arm, let alone comparable to the galaxy level. Therefore, there is something old about this extremely terrifying existence, that is, the elusive grandfather, Jia Yan. Thinking of this, Jia 11 also looked at his amulet. He was thinking, if the amulet given by such a terrifying grandfather would have the ability to kill a star in the first place. But he immediately shook his head. Even if he is a galaxy-level powerhouse, he is not present for this amulet. Isn't it enough to kill a star-level person? You must know that the stellar level is only one level lower than the galaxy level. Being able to kill with foreign objects has shocked countless people. Okay, senior, I also want to become stronger. The swordsmanship of that man just now is really unprecedented to me. It seems to be extremely perfect. If I can deduce the swordsmanship from his swordsmanship, maybe it will be of great help to my swordsmanship. So senior, please start. Thinking of this, Jia 11 no longer thought about leaving the space, but accepted the challenge with great dignity. Anyway, there should be no danger in the outside world for the time being, so what if he is here to receive training from his seniors to become stronger? Very well, let's get started. My training will probably be very hard, so you have to bear it. Jia Yan smiled lightly, and then his brainwave power suddenly changed. Once again, a row of 10 strong men appeared in the illusory space. The 10 illusory powerful figures all have human appearances, but in fact these 10 beings are all powerful beings that Jia Yan encountered during his long exploration of the universe, and their strength is not the same. Starry sky level. There are some who use knives, some who use swords, some who are mainly physically strong, and some who have more terrifying energy talents. There are all kinds of them. In short, they are all relatively difficult to deal with. Besides, I know you have the subspace talent. Use the subspace talent as well. If you can destroy one of them, I will consider you to have passed my assessment. Jia Yan smiled and pointed out a certain strength that the grandson was still hiding. Okay, senior, I know I can't hide it from you, so I'm going to use my talent. The subspace talent is what Jia 11 has always been proud of, and it is also his strongest method. Precisely because he is Jia Yan's grandson, and Jia Yan's important talent is also the subspace talent, so he studies the subspace talent very hard. In addition, there are several subspace talent books written by Jia Yan at home. When Jia Yan's clone returned a few years ago, he also gave Jia 11 a few words of advice. This resulted in Jia 11's subspace actual combat ability being compared to his frontal ability. The combat power must be several levels stronger. Puff. It's a pity that no matter how strong he is, he can't be crushed by absolute strength. When Jia 11 faced the figure holding the knife again, stepped into the subspace of this illusory space, and was about to sneak attack from his side, the figure holding the knife suddenly aimed at the place where he wanted to appear, slashed over with his knife, and killed the figure who was just there. Jia Yan, who walked out of the subspace, was cut in half with a knife. You're too immature. If you go out with your space talent this time and say that you are your grandfather's grandson, you will embarrass him. The angle of entering the subspace is wrong, and the order of exiting the subspace is also wrong. Did you find that if you lower your front foot by 17 degrees when entering, you can enter the subspace twice as fast? When you leave the subspace for a sneak attack, the sword blade will slow down, Are you shooting faster? You're too stupid, kid, hurry up, speed it up, and your efficiency will increase. Jia Yan discovered something was wrong with his grandson at the right time, and then gave some advice. After several pointers from Jia Yan, Jia 11 was shocked to find that the owner of the voice had really seen through his flaws at a glance. Every key point he gave was revealed. It was of great help to him and suited him extremely well. What kind of vision is this? What kind of observation is this? Jia 11 could feel her heart being shaken. He had faced so many characters in the past, including many stars from outer space that visited Earth, but none of them gave him such a strong sense of unpredictability. This being was so powerful that he could even point out the wrong things when he was walking. Although he was a bit chatty, none of his words were useless. Powerful. Really super strong. After a few moves, Jia 11 keenly discovered that with just a few tips and a live battle with the mist-like strong man, his combat effectiveness was instantly raised to a higher level. And this kind of improvement was actually achieved by just changing a few steps and angles of the moves. This. Once, even though he was killed, but his sword drawing speed became about twice as fast as before, Jia 11, who had just reassembled his body, looked at his hands in shock. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2496. Jia 11 couldn't believe that the move just now was performed by herself. It was so terrifying. It was so quick and accurate that even he almost thought he had cheated just now. Yes, young man, your understanding is not bad, which means you are very smart. In the subspace, the clone of Jia Rock Giant rolled his eyes and said something against his will. Good talent. Is your understanding okay? What the hell, no one taught me this back then. You can use the body of a giant mosquito to develop your own fighting power. You need to lower your feet, rear foot attacks, and tail needle attack patterns. You have to find the skills yourself. Why did you learn it after being taught so many times, yet I still have to praise you for your good understanding? Jia Yan was touched by himself. How could someone have such a good elder like him? He neither beats nor scolds his children. He is so stupid and calls himself smart. It's so hard for me. Outside the subspace, Jia 11 was afraid that she was floating, but she thought she was really smart. After all, he has been praised so much by his family and the masters of the outside world since he was a child. They say that there are successors to their Jia family. Even his more demanding father Jia Rong sometimes praises Jia 11 as his son. You are his father. The wind. But Jia 11 really doesn't know that Jia Rong's father said it was his father's style, but he really only dares to compare his son with himself. If he dares to say, son, you are as talented as your father, I am as talented as your grandfather, I'm afraid even he himself wouldn't believe this. After all, Jia Yan's talent and ability, Jia Rong just dealing with external affairs, and listening to the rumors in the genius battlefield, all know that it is absolutely terrifying. Forget it if his son compares himself with himself, but with his grandfather? Forget it, it's too shocking. Looking at his grandson with joy on his face outside the subspace, Jia Yan felt that he no longer wanted to teach him. He was a little speechless. Why not just point out the moves? He should have figured it out quickly when he was fighting. Why did he have to? Taught by others. In addition, look at this kid, he is really, very impressive. Teach him to draw the sword at a lower angle. Doesn't he know how to draw inferences from one example and lower his steps? Do you want me to tell you again? This kind of small movements and skills are still aimed at certain specific combat skills. If you switch to other combat skills, you have to talk about other key points. After the explanation, will he mix up the key points between the two skills? I can't tell when the time comes, I'll have to do it again. Alright. Jia Yan finally saw what it meant to be a truly ordinary talent. In fact, he has simply forgotten that ordinary earthlings are a desperate existence. They can probably remember the movements taught, and even if they can't remember them, they can understand them, but when they perform the movements, they are definitely forgetting them. Especially the faster they are asked, the more serious their mistakes will be. In comparison, Jia 11 is indeed a genius. Once he understands it, he can act according to the instructions. It is quite standard. What is this if not a genius? But compared with Jia Yan, you have to throw it away. That's right. Next, your steps will have to change. Yes, lower down. Do you notice any difference? Wow, senior, that's amazing. I found that my speed is a little faster, and my movements are more stable. It turns out that I can do it by lowering my steps? But why didn't there be any change when I tried to change it before? And even have counter effects. Of course, haven't you noticed? This change in footwork must be matched with the change in your swordsmanship. If you don't lower the edge of the sword, how can you lower the footstep? The reason is very simple. You have to figure it out yourself. That's good, I won't wait for you to think about the next move. Watch out, the enemy in front has arrived. Before he could finish his words, Jia 11's figure was killed by a shadow again and turned into two parts. There were not many changes from before. Jia Rock Giant's expression showed a hint of despair. He doesn't want to teach such a grandson anymore. Compared with the many soldiers he taught in boxing, this grandson is really the worst type. He can't learn it even after being taught several times. In Jia Yan's army back then, he was the worst type. Those who were eliminated directly did not even need to show any affection. But subordinates can eliminate them, but you can't just say you don't want your grandson, right? At least Jia Yan understood that this grandson's talent seemed average to him, but among the large group of dwarfs in Orion's arms, he was definitely one of the best. Jia Yan still had this subjective understanding, so he just complained about it and could only continue to teach. And these swordsmanship things and the strengthening of moves are only part of Jia Yan's methods to help his grandson. Although the enhancement of moves and skills can indeed make Jia 11's combat effectiveness stronger, Jia Yan knows best. In the universe, strength is absolute. Even if Jia 11 can practice swordsmanship and skills to the point of the top level only allows him to have a higher level of combat power. Moreover, skills have allowed him to reach a prosperous place. I am afraid that there are existences with stronger skills. Even Jia Yan does not dare to claim that his combat skills are so strong. Even before his trip to Beostar, he thought that he was a reckless man and had no knowledge or skills at all. Of course, that was for many of his peers in the outside world. At that time, his skills and so on have completely surpassed Jia 11 in countless streets. Therefore, although skills can improve Jia 11's combat effectiveness, they will not be a qualitative change. Jia Yan also knows that in a short training time, Jia 11 has learned his swordsmanship and other things. If he goes out and finds a respected person to fight, he will be afraid of death. Jia 11. The only thing that can really improve his combat effectiveness is to cheat this little guy. Okay, it's enough for you to learn the most basic sword drawing and footwork to increase the speed of your swordsmanship. In the future, you can train yourself well. Next, I will teach you something stronger. Jia Yan's words made Jia 11, who was killed by an illusory figure again, slightly startled. Senior, is there anything else? I want to learn, and I would like to ask you to give me some advice. Very good. I'm very happy that you have such a progressive spirit. Now let me tell you that the sword in your hand is not that simple. Do you believe it? Of course I believe it. Since it can possess an invincible strong man like Senior, this sword is probably the best thing I have ever seen in my life. Nonsense, The amulet I gave you is not bad, okay. Jia Yan almost spit out his words on the spot, scolding this unfilial grandson. But since his grandson didn't understand what good things were, he restrained himself. Then let me tell you again, as long as you can release 1% of the power of this sword, you can kill some venerables. Do you believe it or not? Hearing these words, Jia 11 was suddenly stunned, and then her eyes shone with an unprecedented brilliance. Senior, I believe in you. Please teach me how to do it. As a member of the Jia family, I am willing to promise you a guarantee. In the future, my Jia family will help you an undue favor when you need it. Damn it, this guy is really good. He just opens his mouth and uses his identity as a member of the Jia family. Otherwise, the children of the aristocratic family are all awesome. They use their family status to make promises to others when they open their mouths. If you give it, I won't even dare to give it to you. Jia Yan was dumbfounded. He had just recognized himself as a relative of the Jia family for the first time today. He was probably so arrogant that his magnanimity could not even compare to his own. Whenever he goes out, he only dares to call himself, this person, etc. This thing also promotes his identity. When others ask him about the family or power behind him, Jia Yan will be embarrassed. When will he be like Jia 11's grandson? He keeps saying my Jia family or something like that. Damn it, I will use it like this in the future. When you meet a strong man and say, if you spare my life, my Jia family owes you a favor. Pooh. Can the strong man I meet give the face of the Jia family? Forget it, who allowed yourself to be the stronger generation of the Jia family? Isn't it interesting to let future generations pretend to be cool? Forget it. Jia Yan endured it. Okay, since you have the Jia family's guarantee, so what if I promise you? Okay, now you do as I say. Jia Yan casually agreed to Jia 11's words and gave face to the so-called Jia family. Next, Jia Yan began to give a lot of advice on how Jia Yan used the sword in his hand. Of course, this sword was actually something Jia Yan made casually. Even if it is blessed with energy later, it will not be much stronger. So when Jia Yan said that he wanted Jia 11 to develop 1% of its abilities, he actually asked him to developing almost all the potential of this sword will also be Jia 11's combat weapon for a long time to come, so Jia Yan has put some thought into it. The quality of a weapon is not determined by the quality of its material. Unless it is a giant hammer like the giant hammer that Jia Yan temporarily entrusted to Leda for safekeeping, and can fight automatically, the quality of a weapon cannot be measured by its quality. The final criterion is still the user. A truly good weapon is a weapon that suits the user. And this kind of fit can also be said in reverse, that is, the user adjusts all aspects of his own status to fit with the weapon. In this way, both parties have bonuses, and it is possible to explode into a plus. The effect of one is greater than two. Yes, your yin-yang dao practice is pretty good. Feel it? The blade of this sword is of different texture from the body of the sword. These are two weapons made of almost opposite materials. If you are using, try your best to spread your energy to both ends of the two materials. The yin side is aimed at the sword ninja, and the yang side is aimed at the sword body. When the battle is about to break out, when the two are combined, your combat power will be there's going to be amazing growth. Jia Yan explained the performance of the weapon and its most suitable aspects for combat, which made Jia 11 extremely shocked. He suddenly understood that the weapon possessed by the senior was basically made for yin and yang dao. Otherwise, who would inexplicably design a weapon to have both yin and yang sides? Before Jia Yan's grandfather was born, there were probably no users of yin-yang dao. Could it be that this weapon had not been created for a long time? Don't think so much. You kid, your problem is that you like to think wildly. Hurry up and follow the techniques I told you. Yes. Under Jia Yan's strict guidance, Jia 11 quickly started another long training session. At this moment, he has been in this large room where he belongs for a whole day. The invasion of powerful masters from the outside world has never stopped, and what is even more serious is that after the first master level existence failed to return on the first day, he came again the next day, and he didn't come alone, he also brought another venerable level. Even this venerable level was faintly more powerful than himself. The two venerable level beings attacked the base sunk in the magma together, and everyone's heart was filled with despair. You know, the base's defense can indeed withstand the attack of a venerable level being in a magma environment, but they don't know how long this base can last. What's even more frightening is that there may be more than one exalted person from the outside world. What if there is another one, or two? That was an attack from 3 or 4 venerable level creatures. The defense of this base would be shattered in an instant. Damn it, this base can't hold on any longer. Haven't the outside supporters arrived yet? It's impossible to come. Even if we told them that there is a princess of the empire here, I'm afraid no army would dare to come to the rescue. After all, this is a powerful person at the venerable level. Haha, to put it bluntly, our civilization has no the means to fight against the venerable level, have always been under the protection of the empire. How can we have such strong means? If the imperial princess dies here, or is captured, it can be regarded as the bitter fruit of the empire's restrictions on us. Forget it, if she really dies, there is someone who is more than 10,000 people in the empire. If the princess is with me, I feel I have no regrets. By the way, there seems to be another one. Someone is rumoring that the one with the princess is the princess of the most powerful family on earth, the Geo family. If this rumor is true, then his status, but her status is no lower than that of the princess. Young people from the two major forces died here with us, so we really have nothing to regret. That young man? I know he is quite powerful. He was the one who solved those starry sky level warriors who rushed into our base. The Geo family deserves to be the Geo family. It's a pity that our civilization originally stood on the side of the empire. We don't have much contact with people on Earth here, otherwise we wouldn't be able to talk to that young man now. Forget it, no matter how strong he is, what else can he do now? Can he still solve the existence of the Supreme Being? Can he solve one, and can he also solve all the enemy Supreme levels at the moment? You know, our civilization mother, there are probably 5 or 6 venerable level enemies around the star. We can defeat one, but cannot defeat the second one. If he dies, he will definitely die. The researchers in the space, or the high-level civilization people who came to hide here, now have no hope at all. Reinforcements will not come, and it will be useless if they do. On our side, the trapped beasts are still fighting, taking advantage of the terrain in the magma, waiting for the last moment to come. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website.